Welcome to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. Sounds like a big party out here. Welcome to the Edward R. Robow Public Works Room. I've been joined by the Honorable Councilmember Paul Krikorian. We're anticipating Councilmember Wisar. Are we expecting him? I hope so. We'll find out. Oh, welcome you to City Hall. Congratulate you on finding parking and being here. But we also, as you can hear, the acoustics are not the best. So I want to thank our LAPD officer and those assisting us. If you have a conversation, please take it outside. It's hard to hear when someone is speaking around you. So those of you having conversation right now, can you please take it outside? We appreciate your cooperation. Today we have a full agenda. And Councilmember, we're going to probably just isolate those that are continuances. We'll go to those first. And then we have two guests who are volunteering their time as future commissioners. But, okay, so we have cards on items 2, 3, and 4, so I have to call them special. 5 and 6 as well. 7 on 8 will continue to this committee in Plum on December 7th, and hopefully reach council December 15th. Number 9, we have cards. Number 10, we have a lot of cards. Number 11, we have cards as well as on 12, we'll continue in Plum to October 19th, and hopefully in council November 3rd. So the two items, 8 and 12, will be continued. So here for those items, please be aware they are being continued. The Director of Planning report will not happen today, but you're welcome to a few words. Director LeGrand, and you're always welcome. Share pearls of wisdom.
Thank you, Councilmember. Last week I gave you a full report on some of the activity we're working on in the Planning Department. Due to your long agenda, I'll go ahead and not regurgitate that report for you, but we are working on a lot of internal issues to try and figure out what our core services are in the Planning Department, how we can deliver those effectively and efficiently, and looking at next year's budget and trying to do more with less, but still provide the community plan program that we promised this council many years ago, as well as reform the development process to be more user-friendly, not only for the neighborhood groups to interact with us in, but also the applicants, so they have one point of contact to get a hold of during their case processing, as well as have that person have the right tools internally to get their job done efficiently in a climate that has a lot less resources to utilize.
Thank you, Mr. LeGrand. And I do want to thank the staff for, I think in some instances, heroic efforts and the work they're doing, especially the staff supporting the commission. So thank you for that, and thank the staff. We do have two reappointments before us. And Roberto, you want to read the first one?
Yes, Councilman. The first appointment is item 1. It's the reappointment of Mr. David Marquez to the East LA Planning Commission.
Mr. Marquez, are you in the house? Come forward, sir. Please give us your name and address, and tell us, what did you learn these past 2 years, and what do you intend to leave behind when you do leave?
Thank you, Professor Reyes. I'm glad to be here.
Can you speak into the microphone? I can hear you better.
Yeah. I'm glad to be here, Councilman Krikorian. Congratulations on winning the seat. And Councilmember Reyes and staff and Director LeGrand. Can you hear me?
You got to speak up.
I'm trying. Okay, thank you. What did I learn? Well, I learned there's an incredible amount of intelligence out there in the community that has provided us commissioners with a lot of information, needed information. We call the community as an asset in helping us problem solve, adjudicate, I guess you could say in one technical legal term, resolve, and move forward, find the common denominator between city government and the community and all the players, the stakeholders, to improve the planning process, but also to do community building. And I think it's a privilege to be on the commission, and it's a privilege to be on the commission because of the education you receive and the opportunity to impart what you have learned. And it was a privilege to work with my fellow commissioners. And now, where we have this, now we're going to a new era in the planning department with the reorganization and moving towards 12 to 2, the restructuring, that cradle-to-grave process, and we can be more systemic, because one of the issues that we found as commissioners is the problems when we do work by function rather than as a system. And I know it's easier said than done, but when we function where building and safety is approved, I'm just taking a little example, issued a hauling permit to offload dirt from a grading project before a project permit plan is approved. You know, when we have those inconsistencies. And I think, and I believe that with this new effort, this reorganization, it's going to depend on a lot of the training of staff. I think we'll move to prevent some of those issues and those problems. And as we move towards a more customer-friendly type of system, community-centered, where your staff is very understands and lives in the community and shares their issues, understands their issues, and the community may not, and the individuals may not always hear what they want, but as long as it's someone who is very knowledgeable there and is more than empathy, but willing to work with them. So I'm excited about the next 3 years, and that kind of facilitated my decision to reappoint. So you asked a question, I gave you a long answer.
Well, thank you for the answer to the question, Mr. Marquez. I do want to thank you, Councilmember Kukui and Mr. Marquez, and both of the items. I want to acknowledge him in particular because he has a long history of working with the community. He's a former field deputy and understands what it means to be in the trenches, and how you address a whole range of stakeholders and perspectives. And like you said, sometimes the balancing point isn't what people want to hear, but it's what's fair for the community, and that's a hard place to reach. So I thank you for not giving up on the city of LA and committing yourself, and I thank your family for sharing you with us. Thank you, Mr. Marquez.
Thank you.
And I would move that we reappoint Mr. Marquez. There's a second. We're going to make sure you fill out your City Ethics Commission forms.
They're done.
Okay.
They're done.
Okay.
Done, certified.
Have a good day, Mr. Marquez. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Congratulations. Our next
Item, council members, is communication for the mayor relative to the reappointment of Mr. Michael Ponce to the Harbor Area APC.
would like to come forward, sir. Is Mr. Ponce in the room? Okay, we'll hold, and hopefully he shows up a little bit later. So let's move to the next item. Well, let's do this, Roberto. I do have police officers here on item number 10. So, folks in the audience, when I do have officers in the room, we'd like to have them speak their piece, give us their perspective, and hopefully get them back out on the field. So, with your indulgence and courtesy, we'd like to ask to move on number 10. So can you share with us number 10, Roberto?
Yes, Councilman. Item 10 is an appeal by Sam Sattar. Stuart Miller is a representative. They're appealing part of the decision of the zoning administrator, which imposed conditions number 4 and 5 relative to hours of operation and a security guard as it relates to Dima Market in Wilmington, and this is a revocation case.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Albert Landini. I'm a zoning administrator with the City of Los Angeles, and today I'm speaking for Larry Friedman, a retired zoning administrator on this matter. He was the zoning administrator of record. And on June 30th, 2010, Mr. Friedman issued a determination in which he required the modification of the operation of a market known as Dima Market, located at 10609 Wilmington Avenue, in order to mitigate adverse impacts caused by said operation and the sale of alcoholic beverages, and any potential impacts caused by any future operation of the market. The conditions that Mr. Friedman imposed were 22 in number, and in imposing those conditions, I'd like to read this one paragraph into the record. It sort of sums up the full statement made in Mr. Friedman's diligent report. In March of 2007, the City Attorney's Office Citywide Nuisance Abatement Program, CNAP, referred the subject market to the Office of Zoning Administration for nuisance no nuisance abatement and revocation processing due to community complaints of public drinking, loitering, obstruction of the public sidewalk, drug use and sales on, near, and directly associated with the use and the site. The Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, documented call and arrest reports for public drinking, narcotics, and controlled substance possession, use, and sale, possession of drug paraphernalia, assaults, threats, and possessions of deadly weapons. LAPD personnel have stated that numerous persons loiter outside the DEMA market for the purposes of selling and purchasing narcotics. Hand-to-hand narcotics transactions have been seen by undercover LAPD officers inside the store as well as outside and across the street from the store. In responding to those statements, Mr. Friedman held a public hearing on this matter where he took extensive testimony from people living in the area, from police officers involved in the site, and for those speaking in support of the market. He fashioned the 22 conditions, and in fashioning those conditions, he made the notation that between the years of 2000 and I believe it's 2004 and 2009, there were 65 reports of incidents at this location or directly nearby to it, and such reports involved guns, drugs, public drinking, etc., as was stated in the summary report. Now, the matter is before you on an appeal. Mr. Friedman did not act to shut the market down. He did impose conditions 4 and 5, and those conditions 4 and 5 are the ones that are under appeal today. Condition number 4 involves a limitation of hours on the market such that it would have to close at 7 o'clock p.m. And the reason behind the formation of that condition is the police department analysis was that there seemed to be a flex point in the occurrence of crime in that area, and that there was a significant increase in the amount of crime after 7 o'clock p.m. The second condition that's under appeal here today is condition number 5, which requires an armed security officer on the premises at all times during which it is open. And again, the police department argument for the requirement for such provision of a security officer is that the provision of a security officer would act as a deterrent to the more violent crime activities in the area. Again, there were 2 murder complaints and there were 2 drive-by shooting complaints that were in the immediate neighborhood of this. With that, the 2 conditions, 4 and 5, have been appealed by the market operator and property owner, and in making the appeal of it, they state that the restriction on the hours of operation to 7 o'clock p.m. would be too restrictive and would substantially reduce the amount of business they're able to do through this market, and that this would effectively put them out of business. And they further go on to argue that no direct relationship between criminal activities in and about the neighborhood can be tied to the subject site. The other condition for the security guard is simply one of cost for the provision of security guards, and they argue that the provision of such security guard would not be a substantial deterrent for the reduction in criminal activities. Most important of all the other conditions remaining outside of 4 and 5 is that Mr. Friedman required that at the end of 6 months that the applicant, market operator, property owner file a PAD, a Plan Approval Determination report, in which time they would come back in and the city would then review to see if these conditions had been effective in terms of reducing the errant behavior associated with this subject property. I believe there are police department representatives in the audience today, that there's a neighborhood council representative, and that there may be a city council office representative. I do not know that. And I believe there's also a number of people that are here today to speak in support of the market and to be in support of the appeal. Anything else I can answer for you, please call on me.
Thank you, Mr. Landini.
Thank you, sir.
Very well done. We'll hear from the appellant, and then we'll hear from the officers. So the appellant, will you please step forward and give us the nature of your appeal?
Is there a tripod or something, or do I just need to hold this up?
I think you got this gentleman here ready to, there, Mr. Landini can do it. There you go. You just need to turn it around. It's upside down. There you go. Please give us your name and address.
My name is Scott Wellman. I am the attorney for the appellant, the Demon Market. Associate of mine is Stuart Miller, who actually wrote the appeal letter. I did give a submittal, and that submittal should have been distributed to all of the council members. It's vitally important that that is read, because it does state the facts and the arguments in a way that's important to understand what is going on here. I also note that the chart that's in front of you is attached as an exhibit to the submittal. I also have a number of photographs that I'm going to be entering into the record. And I have a petition of over 400 signatures of residents in the community who support the market and do not want it closed down at 7 o'clock at night. Which leads me into my presentation. How long do I have?
Try to be as succinct as possible.
I will. As the zoning administrator pointed out, there were 22 conditions imposed. We have no objection whatsoever with 20 of those 22 conditions, and we'll comply with them diligently, and we'll monitor the situation with the city and with the police department. It is the two conditions that are the death knell and are tantamount to a closure order. This market is 500 square feet. 50% of its business comes after 7 o'clock at night. If you were to take that away, the store could not stay open. The security guard, we are not opposed to a security guard from 7 o'clock at night to 11 p.m. Right now it closes at 11. What we cannot afford is an armed security guard. And I don't know why the zoning administrator would want to input into a situation like this a firearm, but we would be glad to have an unarmed, certified, licensed security guard there from 7 to 11. And we are willing to work with the police department and the 15th Council District staff to work out a compromise to these two conditions. And at the end of this, I'm going to ask that maybe this be kicked over for a couple weeks so I have that opportunity and come back with something that is a compromise that's workable for everybody. Now, the support for the market is huge. We have over 50 people that live in the area that came out to talk today. As I said, we have photographs. This is not a liquor store. It sells only beer and wine. The overwhelming majority of its sales comes from food items and supply items. And many of the people who patronize the store work, so they can only come in after 7 o'clock at night. And so we have many people in the community who depend on this public benefit. The evidence does not support a closure at 7 o'clock, and the zoning administrator mentioned that there was a quote-unquote flex point, that there was more crime after 7 p.m. Well, the assistant zoning administrator relied upon 65 incidents reports. If you look at the chart in front of me, before 7 p.m., more than 75% of those incidents occurred. Before 8 p.m., more than 94%. That is, in the nighttime hours, less than 6% of these incidents occurred. There is no substantial evidence whatsoever, albeit counterintuitive, to support this notion that there's a flex point and crime occurs at night. It doesn't. All incidents, for the most part, occur before 7 p.m. And I believe there is sort of a boilerplate feeling that things happen bad at night. That's not the case.
I want you to conclude, please. I think you've made your points.
The other thing that's important is that out of the 65 incidents, 61 of them occurred outside the store, in the area. Did not occur in the store. And for instance, occurred in the store with things like a counterfeit $20 bill, sale of a single cigarette. There's no violent crimes at all in this store. There are less drastic remedies available. I am willing to work with the police department and the neighborhood watch and with these neighbors behind me are all going to come up to work on that. But we cannot close the store at 7 o'clock. It would be a terrible disaster for the community and would be an overkill and would result in a taking, which I want to avoid. Thank you
very much, sir. Okay. I appreciate your cooperation. The sooner we can get to the hearing, the quicker we're done. So I appreciate the energy. Let's ask the police officer, and please, let's respect everybody. If we disagree with what's being said, allow the courtesy for the individual to be heard. So please introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Detective Eric Moore. I'm assigned to Detective Support and Vice Division. I am a supervisor of the Community Problems Unit.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm here before you today in support of the zoning administrator's determination and also in support of Southeast Vice, Southeast area, and Detective Support and Vice Division. Just to give you some background, before my unit is involved, I'm charged with overseeing. The Community Problems Unit is responsible for all formal abatements within the city of Los Angeles. Before a location meets that criterion, it's a two-pronged test that has to be met. Firstly, that the owner or property owner of this property is unwilling or unable to resolve the nuisances at this location. What you will hear is ongoing testimony that attempts have been made to work collaboratively with the property owner and the business owner to resolve the issues. But traditional enforcement, our resources have not permanently resolved this issue, and thus we're here before you today. What's really significant about this location is that comparatively, I'm charged with overseeing all of the formal abatements throughout the entire city. So I have a familiarity and a responsibility to be aware of all of the liquor store, ongoing nuisance locations within the city. This location, comparatively, is one of the worst that I've seen in years. I say that because there's perpetual loitering, there is ongoing narcotic activity. You'll hear some testimony that's more specific about what's going on. But when my subordinate brought this location to me and briefed me on the location, I was really in favor of us actually moving toward revocation. However, you know, in a sense of, to be collaborative, we simply offered some improvements that might mitigate the public safety issues, the crime issues. We will see for sure, and I can attest to ongoing police resources that have redundantly been deployed here without any lasting result. This location is a public safety issue. I stand in support of the ZA's determination and find that all imposed conditions should remain.
Detective Moore, could you frame your level of how can I say this, participation in addressing the public safety issue? What time periods are we talking about that you're aware of? I'm sorry, are you asking how long has this location been a problem, or what time should it shut down? No, how long has it been a problem? It's been brought to my attention for approximately 1 year. The entire time I do not know. Please. I'm going to have to ask you to leave if you do not allow for the individuals to be heard. This is a courtesy I'm asking of you. Please constrain yourself. If you can, I'm going to ask you to leave. Okay, thank you, sir. It was brought to my attention approximately 1 year ago. Thank you very much. Okay, the next detective would like to come on up. Please give us your name.
John Yennel. I'm a sergeant at Southeast Vice, and like to also tailgate on what Detective Moore just talked about. I've been at the Southeast Vice unit the last 2 years, and this location has been a nexus for problems for us in that area. It's been violent crime, there's been gang activity, there's been narcotic sales, so much so that our typical vice enforcement has branched out into narcotics enforcement. We've had our undercover officers working the narcotics end of it and made several narcotics arrests in the late afternoon, early evening because of the nexus of this market location. I do support conditions 4 and 5. Regarding the hours, my past experience is that the later hours are consistent, despite what the earlier speaker talked about, with increased vice activity and nuisance activity. I've spoken with employees at the location after each of our vice enforcements, and they tell us that they are intimidated by the gang members that loiter at the location. The manager met with us and said he feels helpless, and that tailgates into the next condition of a security guard. A security guard would provide a buffer, a third party that would not be an employee that would make the contact. State certified security guards are well trained, and I think that that aspect of it would provide a level of security not only for the business but for the community as well. We've had several shootings there, and despite the information I believe in the report you have, the year of 2010 has been consistent with that same activity. We've had several shootings, several felony narcotics arrests, and several high-profile crimes there. So, again, I would ask for your support in that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm Sergeant Scott Carty. I'm also assigned to Southeast Area Vice. Over the course of the past 18 to 24 months in my assignment at Southeast Vice, we've roughly conducted approximately 24 investigations for public nuisance crimes at the Dema Market, either directly in front, directly inside, directly to the north, or directly to the south adjoining the property. These investigations have involved those crimes from drinking in public, public intoxication, narcotics usage, possessions of narcotic paraphernalia, loitering, blocking sidewalks, and trash. After the completion of every investigation that we've conducted at this location, either myself or Sergeant Yano, my partner, have attempted to make contact with either the employees, the manager, or the owner of the store in an attempt to try and find a resolution to these constant problems that seem to proliferate at times of sunset and in times of dark period times at night. Over the course of my 2-year assignment in Vice, I have yet to receive a phone call from the owner or anyone from his staff directly to my office asking for a meeting or asking in a way to find a resolution to these problems at the property. This property, I believe, is a direct nexus to that crime that takes place within that immediate area. It greatly impacts the quality of life of the residents around that area, the trash, the congregation, the openness of the crime has greatly impacted that quality of life around that immediate neighborhood. I directly support conditions 4 and 5. I believe they are vital. I believe with the drain on the police resources that we are constantly having to respond for the various crimes that occur here are draining to the police department. And in essence, it takes away or negates the ability for the police staff at Southeast Area to impact the surrounding area.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have a Senior Lead Officer Robert Yanis, and then we have Sergeant Helen Bayatis, and then we'll have James Otiswick. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Senior Lead Officer Robert Yanis, assigned to Basic Car 18M35. I'm the Senior Lead Officer in charge of the area where the Dema Market is located. I have 20 years on the job. I came to Southeast in 1996, where I was became aware of the market at the time as a nuisance. When I was assigned to the area in 2005, I started working on that problem location. And out of all the liquor stores in my area, the Dema Market was my #1 problem. Okay.
Did you say was or is?
Is. Still is, I'm sorry. I'm in favor of conditions 4 and 5. Okay. Like the representative said earlier, most of the crime occurs in the evening. That's one reason why that market should close at 7 o'clock. I have to vary my hours from time to time, especially in the evening, so I can monitor that location. In my logs, it would indicate that I've spent anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour parked in front of that location. I met with the owner and the employees there, before and after they received these conditions. And it wasn't until after arrests were made from the store owner and a couple of clerks, and once they received the conditions, that I received 2 calls. One call I did not actually receive because I was on a day off. The second call I received regarding narcotic activity, and the clerk gave me the suspect's name. Okay, so he is aware of the activity there. Okay. One reason we need a security guard there is to help to deter the problem. From what I understand is, handguns were recovered from that location. There's no need for this employees to be armed there. That's why we should have an armed guard there. Okay. It also helps our job a little easier because we don't have to worry about officers always responding or staying there for several hours monitoring the location. Again, after 7 p.m., most people get off work between 5 and 6, and they'll conduct their business before going home. When I've worked evenings, they are always loitering, drinking in public. As a matter of fact, 3 individuals I can point out right now, that I personally cited for drinking in public. I've warned for loitering in front of the location. One of the individuals live on 107th, where the gang members that I've observed hanging out and loitering in front of the location have been at the residence as well. And I've spoken to that person regarding gang activity at their residence. And least but not last, less than 6 weeks ago, when I observed numerous people running into the market and then walking out without making purchases. I walked in, recovered a jacket containing 11 small baggies of marijuana in front of the store clerk's view. And there was no way his vision was blocked when I walked in, or when someone could walk in and place that stuff in between the shelves. I also asked that clerk if he was aware of this. He stated no. And said, so he did not see someone walk in and place his jacket in there. He said no, but yet he still had a clear view. And
Thank you, Mr. Sergeant.
That's it.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Helen Payares. Then we have James Otis Swift, and then Stacy Young, and that will conclude the presentation by the Los Angeles Police Department.
Hello, my name is Sergeant Helen Polaris. I am the supervisor for Senior Lead Officer Yanes, and I am the field supervisor that heads the Senior Lead Office in Southeast area, and I go out and I correspond with the areas and the quality of life issues. I'd like to point out the interaction we've had on a proactive basis and a self-initiated basis is lacking at this particular location. They were served in late June with the conditions. Prior to that time, I had not had any self-initiated interaction with the individuals that run the business, either as a clerk or as an owner. In fact, we constantly had tried to get hold of them. They were very difficult to get hold of and did not return phone calls. Since that time, we have had 3 phone calls, 2 to Officer Yanes, and 1 to the watch commander asking for trespass paperwork. So perhaps in the future they could serve the trespass paperwork, and if people were loitering, maybe they could have the police move them on. However, I'd like to point out we have a liquor store 3 blocks away. In that one, I have a senior lead officer that corresponds with that individual on a weekly basis. We don't have hardly the quality of life issues or the nuisance issues in that area. They're quite happy to see the police coming. There's no loitering out front. We don't have people sitting on the sidewalk in front. And the give and take of information is freely given, and therefore we don't have any issues in that area. So we have a school going up in the area as well that's come to me with concerns, and they will probably talk later. And the 2 liquor stores are the school's in between the 2 liquor stores. One of them doesn't seem to be an issue. The school is not concerned because of the give and take with the police department, the fact they are part of the community and the partnership they have forged with us. And the other one, which is Dema Market, which seems to be very resistant to working with the police department to help them solve the quality of life issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. James Swift and Officer Stacy Young. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Officer Stacy Young with Los Angeles Police Department. I'm assigned to Detective Support and Vice Division, and I've been my 20 years of service with the Los Angeles Police Department. I am the nuisance investigator for the city of for the Operation Southfield, and I have Southeast as my location. The liquor stores that we have, I am going through with 77th, Harbor, all of these liquor stores to bring to the attention to say, we're not going to take it anymore. The community doesn't want it, the business owners. We're going to put a stand to say that we want to uphold these conditions, which is 4 and 5, for the security guards and the hours operation, because our officers, as has been stated, as well as from the representative, we are too busy. The City of Los Angeles have high priority calls, and we do not have the resources to mandate for this location, and we need the assistance of this store owner to help us, to help them, and we need a security guard there.
Thank you, officer.
Thank you. I'm the final speaker.
Thank you, officer. Okay, so that was the final speaker. Now we'll go to public comment, and we're going to go through the cards. There's quite a few actually on item number 10. And we're going to ask you to, when you come up, give us your name and address. Keep your eye on the clock. We have a lot of cards, so we're going to give you 1 minute. If the person that has spoken before you, if you agree with that person, it's okay to say, I agree, and give us anything new to add. We're trying to make a decision based on information, so please give us new information, and it's okay to agree so we can move this committee along. So that being said, we'll give everybody 1 minute, and we'll start with the next speaker. That's Dr. Michelle Tubbs. Are you here? Please come on up. And then we'll go with Yolanda White, and then Donna Berry. Good afternoon, ma'am.
I'm Dr. Michelle Tubbs. I'm the principal at 10720 Wilmington Avenue, right down the street from the liquor store. I am Alliance College Ready charter organization, and I have 145 parents who have asked me since January, how are you going to keep my kids safe with the liquor store activity down the street? We are slated to move in 2 weeks, and I ask you, what do I say to my parents?
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, Yolanda White. And then we have Donna Berry. And then we'll have Natasha Brax. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Yolanda White. I'm 48 years old. I've been born and raised since 1962 from Watts, in and out. That that man don't have nothing to do with this people's on the outside. What it is, whatever go in there, that's a store for our kids. I have grandkids, okay? I got 5 grandkids. I got a son, 30, none of this. This needs to stop. They done put that school up there. They trying to stop this store. This man don't know what's going on outside that store. You know, what's in the inside, this is what he's looking at. I come in there, I've been in the hospital and just got out 5 days. My mother be 80. We got COPD. We can't walk. I can't hardly talk. You know, our kids go to the store. It's not the store, it's the people. They off the streets. You know, to give up a job and quit putting these schools up in here, maybe they will be selling beer. They got it like a movie. It's not the store, it's the people. It's not the kid, it's the hitters who making more money, but it's not the store. Keep the store open. Give them the probation, please.
Thank you.
Don't shut us down.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Donna Berry.
This man is stop. There is more people that they kill as they talking about.
Berry, thank you very much. And Natasha Brax.
Hello, I'm Donna. Hello, Council. I'm Donna Berry. I'm representing the citizens of Watts as well as Watts, Bright Ones of Watts. It's a community program that prevents gangs prevention in the area that I personally run and operate myself. I'm coming to speak. I'm 28 years old. This store has been in the community since I was a little girl. I have walked to this store various times of night to get things that my mother wanted. I never had a problem. Now, there are problems in the community, but as Ms. White said, and I do agree, and everyone that will come and speak will tell you, it's not the store. It is the people around the store and the things that they choose to do. A security guard will not stop what is going on outside of that store. It's really going to create more of a problem to have an armed security guard in front of that store because it's going to be more of a threat to the people that they already feel threatened by the LAPD.
Thank you, ma'am. Natasha Brax, Shirley Scott, and Latanya Holland. Good afternoon,
My name is Latasha Brax. My address is 1818 East 104th Street. I just like to say, I agree with what they were saying about this man don't have anything to do. He's trying to run his business. You know what I'm saying? He got a family to take care of, just like everybody else do. He's doing his job. He can't stop the people that's coming in. You know exactly where we at. I mean, it's going to be different races, Hispanics, blacks, but we all stick together over there. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say, make a long story short, this man had been looked out for me when I didn't have no food for my kids. When I came in there and saw him, can I get some credit? He told me. I told him, can I get some credit? He said, I don't do credit, but what I will do is take out my pocket and give you something for your kids. You know what I'm saying? Each and every last one of them workers that work behind that cashier, they didn't get to a point where they live us because they can't shut it down. That's where we live at. You understand? But to make a long story short, these people have been helped us regards to what's going on. So we're trying to keep the store open and with God's plan and everybody else in here because he need to take care of his family.
Thank you very much. Next.
Yeah, these kids.
Okay.
You know?
So please sit down.
20 years I've been in the area.
Please speak forward right now. Thank you. Sir. Okay. Sir. Sir. We're going to call you. We'll call you up. Please. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Our next speaker. Okay. Please sit down. Thank you. Okay. Please sit down. That's fine. Thank you. Shirley Scott, come on up.
Yes, Your Honor. I've been living in this community for 42 years.
Okay.
My mother been living on 105th. What I'm here to say, my husband don't get off work till 6 o'clock. He might send me to a store to get something, and it's closed at 7. I live a little ways. I'm in a chair. I took out my time to ask y'all to please give us a little time at our store. 7 o'clock is not enough time for us. Just like the young lady said, the man come out his pocket to help us. He don't have to do that. But I'm saying this to say, just give us a little time. If you want to put us on probation, put us on probation.
Okay.
But we need our store.
Thank you,
in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, much. Latonya Holland, then John Rodriguez, then Arnie Corlin. Please come on up. Give us your name and address, and keep an eye on the clock. You got 1 minute. Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Latonya Holland. I live at 10316 Hickory Street. And I love this store. My kids love this store. They go to that store. They help us. And only thing I want to say is, can y'all show us some mercy?
Thank you, ma'am. John Rodriguez, Arnie Corlin, and then we'll have Raul Godinez. Good afternoon, sir.
I don't think I can see that. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Arnie Corlin, 8726 South Sepulveda Boulevard. I own a property directly across from the street from the DEMA. For years, tenants in my properties have endured, and myself have endured, the blatant nuisance activity allowed by both the owners, DEMA Market, and the property owners, Humberto and Maria Nunez. As a member of the Apartment Association of Greater LA, I regularly volunteer with LAPD throughout the city, teaching business and property owners how to control nuisance issues on their properties. Including in that teaching are the principles of crime prevention through environmental design, or CPTED. One principle of CPTED is how locations of ongoing nuisance cause a nexus of negative behavior far beyond their property lines. In 2005, I reached out directly to both the owners and property owners offering assistance. Both chose not to respond. Cameras on my property show what can be seen from the property with hours of video. And some of these things that have been seen, including multiple drive-by shootings, including homicides, youth of all ages daily forced to go through the gauntlet of what I believe to be narcotics activity, real estate agents refusing to list the property, and tenants refusing to rent.
Thank you, sir.
This store should
Thank
be
you.
shut down.
Just for the record, what's been demonstrated to us is seems like a videotape of activity in front of the store. Next is Raul Godinez, and then John Rodriguez, and then Dino Burahi. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. We have Raul Godinez here. Raul Godinez. Once, twice. Okay, we'll move on. John Rodriguez. Is John Rodriguez here? Okay, we'll move on. Dino. It's spelled B-U-I-A-H-I. Dino, are you here? Please come on up and give us your name and your address.
Dino Biatti, 9119 Keniston, Los Angeles. I just like to say I'm here on behalf of my family who owns property in the area. We're investors, and this liquor store has a destabilizing effect on the neighborhood.
Is it destabilizing?
Yes.
Okay.
It's very difficult to sell property. It's very difficult to rent in the area because of the nuisances mentioned by many before me. My family's in the business of getting property, fixing it up, and making nice places for people to live. And in such situation, we have property sitting there that's vacant, that's unable to be sold. This property in itself becomes a problem with empty property sitting around. So I just like to reiterate that I am for the motion to impose these two additional guidelines upon the liquor store to help improve the neighborhood for residents and for the city itself. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Christopher Carmouche. And then we have Isalera, I believe it's Calvin.
Council members, good afternoon. My name is
Yes, sir.
Christopher Carmouche. I'm a property owner at 10618 Wilmington. I'm not certain of the genesis of the problem here, but being a property owner, I am just like my previous speaker. My property has been vacant for the last 10 months. As I stated, I purchased the property in 2005, and since 2005, I have had approximately 24 months of vacancies. And as a result, it has had quite a substantial impact on my financial situation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'll be cutting off public comment cards, no more cards. That'll be the end of the public comment cards. You can submit them for the record, but we won't be, we're cutting the public comment period. Isalera Calvin? Good afternoon, ma'am. After that, we have Sharon Chambers, and then we'll have Margaret Jackson. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. The name is Esselina. First of all, I'd like to say that I do live in a neighborhood, and as far as the store itself, we need the store. I have great-grandchildren. I have grandchildren. Myself, we go to school at night. We get out at 9. We have no way to purchase whatever we need without going to another store that's out of the neighborhood. I heard one of the persons mention the fact that, one of the officers rather, mentioned the fact that there's a liquor store within the 3 blocks area. I wouldn't want my children to walk that far, that late at night, even though one of them is 18 years of age. We need the store, bottom line. As far as Mohammed, the owners of the store, they treat us good, real good. They're good people. The incidents that's happening, like the lady said, I agree, is outside of the store.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Sharon Chambers, Margaret Jackson. Is Ms. Chambers here? Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes.
How are you?
My name is Sharon Chambers. I'm
Please.
47 years old.
Can you into the microphone? Can you speak there?
My name is Sharon Chambers. I'm 47 years old. My aunt's name is Miss Mary Forte. And we had a liquor store in the area. They closed it down because the church was close to it, and we never opened it back up. But this store has been in the neighborhood a long time. It's been in with my grandmother's and ancestors been going on. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of stores around. These people told a lot of stories about what they said. I represent Peachtree, and A lot of these faces I see here right now, I never seen around in the neighborhood, coming around talking about what's so bad going on and all this stuff. But a lot of faces I see right here, right now today, they do stand up for a lot of things. There's a lot of old people can't go to stores. They can't get a lot of places. They just shut down a lot of things for our community. But the store do open at a certain time, like 7 o'clock, and then it close at 10 and sometime at 2. But there's a lot of liquor stores around. A lot of things go on. Nobody anticipated on that. Ever since this little school came along, it was the Friends of Watts over there next door to it. I know it was going to be a anticipation, but we need the store open for the older people and more people around.
Thank you, ma'am.
And we do have our own community or service for to keep the security.
Thank you very much. Margaret Jackson, and then we have I don't have a name on this one. It's
Hello,
this is
my name
Dina
is
Market.
Margaret Jackson.
Hi.
And I live in the neighborhood. I've been living there for all my life. And in the store that's in the neighborhood is good for us, for our kids. And all the things that they said about Muhammad in the store is not true, because what goes on in the area is not his fault. So we do need the store in the area. So it's like, it's not for you to close it down.
Thank you, ma'am.
So we leave it in God's hand.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Karen Williams, and then Darlene Howard, and Sergio Andrade. Is Karen Williams here? Going once. Karen Williams. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Williams. My address is 9222 Graham Avenue. And I do agree with the security guard, but I don't agree with no security guard of the police force, because like I heard earlier, that is intimidation to anybody, because they always doing things that they know they ain't got business to do too. But now, as far as the time, 7 to 7, come on now. 7 to 7, that's ridiculous. And like they said earlier, a lot of people say, you know, your apartments or this and that, you rent to whoever you want to rent to. Them people, you don't do no background check. So they standing outside these apartments doing what they want to do. His place is surrounded by a number of apartment buildings all across the street. They said it themselves. But did you do your background check on who you was renting to? Did you go out there and see, you know, who was coming outside your apartment at nighttime when you rented to them? No, they did not. They rented these apartments because they wanted to get paid just like he wanted to get paid from running his store. It's like it have nothing to do with inside that store. People walking there all the time. Just like Ace High, as they said, Ace High was the same way. Okay, did they get an armed security guard? No, they got the police enforcement. You said you've been watching. You watch, go arrest.
Thank you, ma'am.
Make arrestments.
Thank you very much.
Okay, but just keep the store.
Thank you,
7
ma'am.
to 10 would be a great.
Darlene, okay, thank you very much. Sergio Andrade. Darlene Howard and Sergio Andrade. Darlene Howard. Good afternoon, ma'am.
My name is Darlene Howley, and I've been here in Watt, and I've been knowing Mr. Sam Mohammed ever since they got the store. They good people.
Thank you. Sergio Andrade.
Good afternoon, Sergio Andrade.
Please, let's hear the speaker, please, to show some courtesy. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Sergio Andrade. Like I said, I've gotten to know Mohammed, Sam, and the good people of the Dimas Market for quite a while now. I send my kids without parental supervision, and I've never had no incident with my kids getting into any trouble, mischievous, or anything happen to them. Yeah, the police do make their presence known and stuff like that, but most of the time they're harassing the wrong people. I mean, most of the times the people that they're giving tickets to and say loitering and stuff like that, they're the same ones that are working with them, so they understand what they're talking about. Like I said, if the police would be doing their job, we wouldn't have these problems at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Either Misha Beavers or Zello Speed, and I believe it's Hubbard. I don't have the last name. So Misha Beavers or Zello Speed. And Herbert, and you can line up behind the speaker if you like so we can move this on.
Good afternoon. I'm Aisha Beavers. I live at 1772 East 109th Street. The liquor store that they're talking about, that's 3 blocks away, is Tommy's Liquor Store. Tommy's Liquor Store, in the last 2 or 3 months, there was a body found behind Tommy's Liquor Store. There was one of my neighbors that was killed in front of Tommy's Liquor Store and killed on 109th down the block. So it's not like it's just things that are going on around the store. We appreciate this store. Most of us go to this store every day. I walk from 109th to 107th to go to this store. Even when I moved out of the neighborhood, I still came back to the store because he is a help to a lot of us. A lot of us that don't have help.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not just like he can't control what goes on in there. It's been several times I've seen the police come up and people run in the store, and he's like, no, you need to get out of my store. Or, you know, you guys can't hang out in front of there. It's got to the point where he's put a mirror up there so he can watch the people that are outside that are standing and hanging in front of the store. So it's not his fault. He can't control what goes on in the street. And it is surrounded by nothing but houses.
Thank you. Rosanna Spade, and then we have Hubbard.
Yeah, my name is Jackson Hubbard. I represent Red Tent Black Party, Black Panther Party for self-defense and self-determination. First of all, this attack on the community and not the store. This is some kind of form of gang injunction that they slipping in some kind of, I don't know what y'all trying to do. This dude done gave people Pampers and stuff for free. He talking about a store. Imagine they close your supermarket at 7 o'clock at night and you gotta go to another city or another town. Let them do that to y'all.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Rosella Speed. I stay at 10378 Wilmington, and I just want to say that I don't think they should close it down because, like I said, everybody got to go there. And as far as the landlords, it ain't got nothing to do with the store. They just slumlords. They just can't rent their property out because they're not doing what they got to do to their property. So it had nothing to do with the store. It's just, and then you say go to another store. If you close that, I stay on 103rd. That'd make me walk 10 blocks to go to a whole nother store across the parkway, across, you know, it's just too far. That neighborhood store needs to stay where it's at.
Thank you, ma'am. Rodolfo Concha, Lakeisha Johnson, and Laverne Fenderson. So we have Rodolfo Concha, are you here? Rodolfo Concha, go once, twice. Lakeisha Johnson. Good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Lakeisha Johnson.
You can lift the microphone if you like. There you go.
All I want to say that Muhammad is a good man, and what goes on in the area don't have nothing to do with him. The drugs, the violence, the killing. They have cameras. They should catch the killers. So leave the store where it be.
Thank you. Laverne Thenarcy, then Manisha Smith, and then Takesha Gilbert. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Laverne Tenars. I live at 10408 New Dillon.
Thank you.
I've been knowing Muhammad Nim for over 25 years. Never had any problem. Never. Muhammad Nim has gave everybody in that neighborhood credit. Everybody in that neighborhood credit. They can't say that they have anything to do with what goes on outside. What do you guys want them to do? Kill somebody? If they have to tell somebody to move, that's not their job to tell people to get from there. If they do, they're going to have a confrontation. They have already had confrontations with people trying to remove them from there. I know this from a fact. So what do you want them to do? Hurt someone and then there's a problem. That's the problem.
Thank you, ma'am. Manisha Smith. Takesha Gilbert. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Manisha Smith. I've been going to that store over 15 years. I live way in Panorama City. I come from from Panorama City to go to that store. And I feel all of the things that's going on around that store has nothing to do with him. He can't control what's going on in the streets. I've seen the streets get clean without closing the store. So we'll let God handle this and he will take care of it.
Okay. Takesha Gilbert, Terry Jackson, and then Benisha Adams. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Takesha Gilbert. I live right around the corner from the store. I go to school, and I get off real late. So the store is still open for me to go get bread and stuff that I need at night for the next morning. And Muhammad is a nice man.
Thank you.
Sam and everybody in the store.
Thank you very much,
Please
ma'am.
don't close out.
Okay. Terry Jackson, Benisha Adams, and then we have, I believe it's Michael Terrell. Good afternoon,
My
ma'am.
name is Terry Jackson, live at 10351 Grave Street, and my kids go across the street, and my kids do go to that store, you know, and the store is great. Don't got nothing to do with the outsiders. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next.
Hi,
Hi, my name is Venetia Adams. I'm here to speak on behalf of my mother and my aunt. Like the officer said, that he's written tickets to people for being outside drinking. My mother and my aunt happen to be two homeless people who live on 107. Without Mohammed, my mother and my aunt would starve every day because he lets them come in and cook their food. He gives them food. He makes sure they're all right. He checks on them. So if you shut down his store, it's like where they're gonna go. What are they gonna do? The streets are clean. If you pass by Wilmington right now, there is not one person on the streets, never. So it doesn't make any sense to shut down their store just because you guys had a problem with someone else. The officers cleaned up the streets and nobody else is out there anymore. So it's not fair to them.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Michael Terrell. I live at 1807 and a half, 107th Street. I got a funny story for you. I come home at night and I try to sneak into the house. I have kids. Now they hear these plastic bags that I'm bringing in. They say, "Oh, you brought us some goodies." Now I do this usually, after they get out of school, 5, 6, 7 o'clock. Without that store, those bags don't rattle. Those goodies don't get to my kids. They enjoy it. I enjoy it. If there was a lot of danger to go to the store, I wouldn't go there. And that man, I've seen him personally, like somebody else said, get out of my store, don't bring that in my store, don't do that around my store. But, putting a guard in there, all that's going to do is cause intimidation to the people around, and it's going to bring more problems.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Willie Harris, Lakeisha, I believe it's Whetstone, and Dana Tier. And please, folks, we're trying to hear the speaker with the conversation in the back. It's hard to listen, so please, I ask you for cooperation. Yes.
My name is Willie Harris. I stay on 1772 109th Street. I've been in this country since '92. And ever since I've been able to go to this store, I've been able to take care of my kids. And as a single man taking care of his wife and his 3 kids, that store is something I really do need. I go to school from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night, and I'm able to get to the store and buy the things that we need for the next day for breakfast. Without that store, I wouldn't be able to do that sometimes. Because sometimes my paycheck does not make it all the way for me paying all my bills and everything like that. But the store is very beneficial for me and my family. What goes on in the community is part of the community. That's the police's job to do their job about that, not his. That's all I have to say.
Okay, Lakeisha Whetstone, are you here? Dana Taylor, are you here? Please give us your name and address, ma'am.
Yeah, my name is Dana, 2065 East 105th Street. Well, we've been right there for about 42 years in the same spot. Me and my mom, my family, we go to this store on a regular basis. We see people hanging out. He ain't got no control of people. He got to eat, just like you guys got to eat. You guys got to eat. He doing it to benefit his kids. And he can't got no control of the sidewalk at all. He only have control of the store. And thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I'm trying to read the handwriting on this one. I think it's M-O or M-O-A-N-Z-A-A-T-A-N. Zaitan? Please, sir.
Sir, how are you? My name is my nickname is Mohammed. I've been in the store 20 years.
I'm sorry, are you the owner?
No, I'm not the owner. I work there. I've been there 20 years. I saw a lot of 20 years. Something not only from the store, everywhere and what's. Everywhere. At 20 years, it's not enough. If you are my customer, I don't treat you after 20 years as a customer. I treat you as a family. Yes, I give single cigarette. You know the reason? 20 years. Mohammed, don't worry about inside. After I close the door, if I go to the car, Mohammed, give me a cigarette. It's something, I'm a family. Plus. He said, I didn't call the police. The guy, he told the soldier, the guy with the glasses, I went to his car 3 weeks ago. I said, yesterday I called you, why you didn't come? He said, let me check the computer. He checked the computer, and he said, yeah, nobody show up. I said, nobody show up. I'm not calling yes, a lot of people, I didn't call in the police. These are my people. I try to fix it by myself. A small thing, minor thing. But something bigger, I called the police. I went to his office. The soldier, the white hair, I went to his office. I complained about the bad thing. There is bad thing and good thing, plus and minus. I can't control outside. This is what. I'm the only store. They come from everywhere, from down the street from everywhere to my store because I treat them good. I give credit, a lot of credit, because I'm taking his money every day. And at the end of the month, they need credit. I'm not talking about this. We are three, last word. We are three brothers, me and Sam and Sal. We are 22 kids we have. I have 3 kids. My son, we have 5 kids, and my mother and my third brother. We are 22 kids. Think about it, and God bless America.
Okay, but just, you are the owner?
No, the owner, Sam, my bigger brother.
So are you the manager?
I'm the manager, yes, sir.
Okay, so I want to understand. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. God bless America.
Thank you. Okay, John Shubash, Scott Roman, the probably always heard from. Lorraine McClendon. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Not actually from the Watts area. I'm a family friend from Orange County, and the reason I put my name down on it is the 3 brothers lack a little bit with respect to the English language, and they asked me to more or less represent their views with respect to this case. And I'll be as short as possible. Legally, they have an attorney, a very capable man, Mr. Wellman. I'm a community activist among the Christian Islamic rapport in Orange County. I'm a retired broker. I'm an author on international policy and a college lecturer. These people are good, down-to-earth people. Believe me, until now they don't even know what's going on. They don't understand why they are being targeted. They go to mosques. They do their thighs, they contribute to their community. They're totally oblivious to cracks and whatever is going on outside the stores with respect to narcotics and all these activities. They try. They're good people. They're good citizens.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm grateful to you.
Thank you very much. We already heard from you, correct?
You already heard from me,
Okay,
but just quickly, I needed to submit a picture.
Please sit down. Let me go through this. Thank you. We have Noreen McClendon, Dwayne Daves. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Noreen McClendon, and I live at 739 East 75th Street. I'm also the Vice President of the Watts Gang Task Force, and I'm probably a hybrid of all of the things that you've heard. I know that in my heart, I believe the only reason that we're here right now and the only reason there's a lot of cooperation on the part of the owner is because we are here. I also believe, though, that closing the store at 7 o'clock is pretty early. I think that, and I talked to Muhammad, and they're saying, okay, we'll get the security guard. I think the security guard is a must. I don't think it's negotiable. I think that giving them a few extra hours in the evening might be a good compromise. So probably nobody here is going to be happy with me, but that is how I honestly see it. There have been little girls walking by, people grabbing them on their butts, and while I'm a business owner also, so I know there are things you can do to stop things that go on in front of your business. So I don't necessarily buy the notion that he can't control what goes on outside. And I believe he's a good person, but I don't think that that has any bearing necessarily on this particular hearing. So I'm kind of a hybrid, and I would just say make the man head a security guard, but give him a few extra hours in the evening because the community needs it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Willie Harris.
My name is Dwayne Davis. I live on 103rd, 16 Bandera Street. I've only been living in Watts like 7 years from New Jersey, but the time that I've been there, I noticed this brother Muhammad has been like a pillar to the community. He makes sure everybody gets what they need over there. And which, if you really want to ask me, I think what y'all dealing with is gentrification, and it's going to be more to it than just this store. And that's all I have to say.
My name is Mr. Bray, 10316 Bandera Street. I've been growing up in a Watts community all my life. I'm 30 years old. I've been knowing these guys before they even brought their store to my community when they had their store in Compton called Akix. I've been knowing them for a long time. Ever since I known them, they've been real family orientated in the community. I agree with everything everybody said here today, but just as far as trying to shut our store down for good, it's like shutting down our community. If you shut us down at 7 o'clock, you're shutting down our community at 7 o'clock, but that's still not going to keep nobody from getting shot in front of that store. That's all I want to say.
Cynthia Spencer? Cynthia Spencer? Is Cynthia Spencer here? And then we have we covered as Keisha, okay. Good afternoon, ma'am.
I'm Cynthia Spencer. I reside at 1752 East 106th Street. Good afternoon, everyone. My concern is all personal. I utilize the store often. For whatever need I find, the store is available to me. And it is after 8 o'clock sometimes as late as 10 o'clock. I may get up and want to bake some cookies or do a brownie or a cake. And if I'm lacking an ingredient, the store is available to me. I walk. I don't patronize the shopping center because it's further. So I live on convenience, and that's basically my concern. I am concerned about the extent of the violence that goes on, but I think that's part of what the police in the community have to attend to. And I do agree that the store should come in, they should all work together no matter what, because we are all a community and we all have to respect one another. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that covers everyone that had submitted a card. I did call a few names and we did not get a response, but we called your name in for the record. We do have the council deputy representing the office, and I want to thank the captain for being here. Thank you, sir. We have Frank Hahn representing Okay, Mr. Hahn.
Frank Hahn with the Office of Councilwoman Janice Hahn. In some ways, I feel like I'm speaking to the choir because both of you, I'm sure, have dealt with situations in your own district that are very difficult to deal with, as you've heard today. We have a lot of conflicting statements. We understand the need for such a market. At the same time, this issue isn't a new issue to our office. We believe that the applicant has had ample time to correct some of the issues that have occurred in these past years. I've been involved for at least the past 3 years since the initial zoning administrator's hearing, and since that time, again, the applicant has been made aware of these issues. We initially, still at this time, the councilwoman is strongly opposed to any appeal or any waiver of the appeal. She does not want any waiver of the conditions, but I understand that LAPD is telling me that or at least the captain is telling me that he's willing to consider 4 and 5, so maybe you might want to have him back on afterwards. Again, this is not a new issue to us. We are aware of some of the criminal as well as all of the nuisance activities, and the zoning administrator's report does not even speak to the full account of the problems that we're facing out there. The city attorney's office has a criminal complaint filed against this market as well, and the city attorney's office is here as well if you need them to provide comment. Again, the report, if you read it, this is a bad situation out there. We've heard from many community members throughout the years. We've met with countless folks. Initially, we wanted to close this business down as well, but we understand the revocation process more of a let's try to work out the situation, and so this is what we're doing with the applicant. We have a list of conditions which we don't feel are too onerous for the property owner to comply with, and again, the councilman feels strongly that this appeal should be denied and that the existing conditions should be upheld. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I would like to answer.
Mr. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
In the testimony, there's reference to communicating with the owner, communicating with the manager. What is your experience or office experience in working with the owner and or the manager to address the violence and the conditions that have been described by the Los Angeles Police Department?
I can personally say, unfortunately, I have not interacted. I got involved in this project when initially this revocation hearing started back in '97. This issue, I'm aware, has been with our office long before that. I also have another staff member from our office. She's our district director.
Can we speak to it? Because I think that's
let me
important.
ask.
Please.
Again, I'm Officer Stacy Young, and in reference to what you just asked about with the business owner, I just recently got Southeast Station, so this conditions got placed before me. On other conditions I try to do is I have where I meet with my business owner every quarter. March, June, September, and December, I will be personally meeting with the business owner at site, and then my property owner, I like to meet with them twice a year. And that's normally if I'd go with January and July for the property owner. So that's what we would like to do to meet, get with the owners, if we can have that as well.
So in this particular instance, with this store, how often have you met with the owner?
I just got this I just got Southeast Division. So that's what I'm saying. I would like to be involved with adding that.
That's in the future, but in the past, we don't have a record, in other words. We do not have a record for the past.
No,
Okay.
they spoke earlier about in
That's
reference
my
to that.
question. It was about the past. Okay, well, thank you very much. Captain?
Mr. Reyes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. And I didn't fill out a card because I really wanted to hear from the community members that were here. And that location is in one of the most violent parts of the city. And what you heard from a lot of people here was the reality of that community. And our intent is not to shut down the store in your community. Our intent is to make that community safe. And right now, it's not. And it can't all be blamed on the market, but the market is certainly a significant part of it. And as it relates to the security guard, I think when you're looking at the hours that that store remains open, it would be completely dependent on whether or not we could put a security guard there that was effective. You are not going to be able to put an unarmed security guard out there that will have any impact whatsoever. You're going to have an armed security guard who is well-trained in order to be able to go out there and make a difference. If, in fact, you're looking significantly at not reducing the hours to 7 o'clock, I would ask that we take a look at restricting the times that they sell alcohol. And perhaps the alcohol sales could stop at 7 o'clock if you weren't inclined to close the store earlier. Because what we heard here were people saying that they had necessities for food and that sort of thing. But I don't think another store selling alcohol at 10 o'clock at night is a necessity in that neighborhood.
So let me be clear as to what I believe I'm hearing you recommend. That we stop the sale of alcohol at 7 p.m., that we leave the store open till 10 p.m., but with a guarantee that we have an armed security enforcing that policy. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
From what I heard in this meeting today and from what I've heard in the community, I think that would be a very good compromise to try and do that. Our intent being to keep the store open to provide services to a community that doesn't have a lot of facilities to provide support.
Okay.
And so, essentially, yes.
That's a yes. Council member, observations, comments?
Well, thank you very much, Captain. As I was hearing the public speak as well, I mean, we know that in many parts of the city, it's very difficult to have access to food generally, and there are food deserts in this city where there aren't readily available markets. At the same time, I was struck by the discussion about the nexus issue, that the fact that most of the criminal incidents that seem to be happening here are before 7 o'clock in any event. And I'd like to ask if you could touch upon that issue about why the impact of the hours impacts on the number of incidents. But number two, I was actually, before you spoke, thinking the same thing, that the real issue here, I think the real problem issue, I'm guessing, is the alcohol sales. And that acts as the magnet for the problem elements of the community that are in the area. So is that right? Am I right in that assumption?
Well, I think the alcohol sales are significant, and we had somebody that talked about some family members that are around there. And about 2 weeks ago, I went out there on a Saturday morning. I spent the morning doing a cleanup around that area, and as I walked through that neighborhood, right in and around that market, it was filthy. There were a number of people who were out on crates, sitting out right in and around the store, and at 11 o'clock in the morning, they were very intoxicated, and they were drinking alcohol that very likely came from that store. And so I think the alcohol is an issue. I think that the security guard is an absolute must, but it is right now a congregating place for gang members. It is a congregating place for folks who go there just to hang out and drink. And I think McClintock mentioned, just walking down the sidewalk, you can't get by many times, and when you do, you're harassed or groped or that sort of thing. So, yes, sir.
Captain, I hate to interject, but based on advice of the city attorney, we cannot restrict the sale of alcohol within our jurisdiction. What we could do is restrict the hours of operation, and that's what we're limited to. And therein lies our challenge in changing the environment.
We can't, if we can't limit the sale of alcohol, can we make his being open conditional upon his agreement not to sell alcohol?
Terry Kaufman, Macias City Attorney's Office. No, the city's preempted from those kinds of regulations. The only condition that can be imposed relating to hours is the entire store. But by trying to do it with a condition, it's the same thing as if you limited the hours of just the sale of alcohol. And the only way to do it is to address the store as a whole.
I think controlling the hours of alcohol sales would have to go through a different process, which would be very time-consuming.
ABC is, that's different, but that's not the city's process.
Well, Captain, given those limitations, your original suggestion was that what I heard was that the principal concern you had was making sure that you had somebody there who can enforce these conditions, an armed security guard, and the being armed part is imperative from a public safety perspective. If that is the case, and if we have a 6-month report back here, 6-month plan approval back, would you be comfortable with any modification on the hours now that you know, or given what we just heard about our inability to stop the alcohol sales at 7, would you see that there might be an opportunity for longer hours, perhaps less than what there currently is, more than 7 o'clock, but with an armed security guard?
If we had an effective armed security guard and we had cooperation from the store in trying to work on these problems, and we agreed to come back in 6 months and take a look at the progress, it would also give us some time to work with ABC and find out whether or not we could impact the hours of sales, or whether it's something that they're grandfathered in on that we can't really move.
I think that allows one for us to, for lack of a better word, test if indeed the owner and the managers are willing to cooperate, given this concern we have in trying to improve the quality of life in that area. And essentially, I would go along with the motion, Councilman, that we allow them, but one, that we support the requirement for an armed security officer, and that we allow the store to stay open till, Captain, what's a good time? What's a good time for the store to be open?
I've heard 10 o'clock, and I think 10 o'clock would probably be reasonable.
What time?
10 o'clock.
Okay, so we leave it open till 10 with the condition that there's a security guard, and in 6 months, we'll be back here. And those 6 months, if reports come in that are not, then we're going to review our conditions. Would that be appropriate, Madam Attorney?
Yes, it's within your discretion to change the hours.
Okay. want to hear from the captain. Mr. Landini, I know did you like to speak? Captain? Okay.
Well, as I understand it, we're now moving towards being open to 7 o'clock, to 10 o'clock, 7 nights a week, with the sale of alcoholic beverages during those time periods, and that would maintain coming back in 6 months with the PAD review. I would just ask that we add language to that PAD review that allows the zoning administrator to reserve the right at that time, if he reports from the police department indicate and from the community indicate that we need to go back to the 7 o'clock, that he can impose the 7 o'clock restriction.
Okay, Madam Attorney?
Terry Kaufman Macias, when this matter comes back before this committee and the council on a PAD, it can address any of the conditions if necessary to mitigate or abate any nuisance activities in addition to the hours.
Just for the record, PAD?
It's the plan approval process.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So, Director LeGrand, is that what?
Councilman Michael LeGrand, Planning Department. I think Mr. Landini outlined a good approach where you can have an automatic plan approval required by the applicant to file and pay the appropriate cost recoverable fees in order to do so, which are substantial for revocations because of the amount of work that goes into them. Or the other option would be to allow LAPD to monitor the site through Cnap and then notify the zoning administrator and the council office if there's a raise in issues where we need to invoke that plan approval ourselves. So it's just a matter if you want automatic plan approval in X amount of days, or you rather it be on monitored status and then if necessary invoke the plan approval.
I would like to seek the least costly approach, which would be the second approach.
Then I would suggest that you'd ask the LAPD to continue to monitor this, communicate with the chief zoning administrator if there's any continued issues, and through the council office, and just the way we initiated this case, we go back and initiate a plan approval on them at that point. But that way they're not having an undue hardship with the amount of fees that would be charged for the plan approval. That to automatically come back if there isn't any violations.
Okay.
But if there is a violation, they would be subject to heavy penalties and fees.
Okay. So, Madam Attorney, what will be our action in this committee at this moment in time to achieve the recommendations as stated by Director LeGrand?
You would, Terry Kaufman, Macias City Attorney's Office, you would grant the appeal in part and deny the appeal in part, and then you would issue the directive that Mr. LeGrand talked about. I guess you could have LAPD report back in 6 months also to let you know the status.
Okay.
And then you could, and then at that time, if necessary, require the plan approval. So that would be an additional condition, I guess, now that if the conditions, the nuisance conditions have not been abated to the satisfaction of LAPD and the zoning administrator, then they would be required to come in for plan approval.
Okay. So, Mr. Landini, anything else?
Yes, sir. Only that we want to modify condition number 4, which is the hours, to allow for it to operate till 10 o'clock p.m. And we want to modify the condition on the plan approval. I don't know the number of that right here, so that the police department would be the responsible party for informing the planning department that there's need for us to initiate the plan approval process.
And we will require a security guard.
Right, no sooner than, but the security guard would stand as is.
Okay.
No change to the security.
Terry Kaufman, Macias City Attorney's Office, and also you might want to put a time on if plan approval, if it's determined necessary, how long they would have to
6 months.
file and come back.
6 months would be?
We'll keep the same 6 month that Mr. Friedman made the decision on there, and then the police department would report to us at that 6 month.
Anything else you want to add, Captain?
No, I look forward to coming back here, but not only reporting on the quality and how we've improved, hopefully, but also I really expect and hope that the owner will insert himself and work together with us to try and make this better.
And the owner's not here today.
I understand.
Okay. Now, let me be clear. As Councilman Krikorian has stated, we understand that in certain neighborhoods we don't have access to the basics of milk, eggs, bread. We understand that, and I think you're hearing that from this body. But we are also emphasizing that the manager and the owner is responsible in 6 months. If we come back with the type of report and evidence, just like we saw today, we have people running in and out, dropping off drugs, causing problems, outside drinking. Those are issues that should be controlled by the property owner and the manager, and we will address it accordingly, but we're offering 6 months. We're listening to the captain. We don't want to impose any more hardship on the community, but we need cooperation from everybody, and that's what we look forward to in 6 months.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it's been seconded by Councilor Concordia by the Activist Committee. Thank you. And can you please exit quietly? Okay. Please exit quietly. We have another item to attend to. That's item number 5, since we're losing.
Folks, exit quietly, please. We should have a meeting ongoing, folks. Thank you, Adrian.
Please exit quietly. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for your patience. It's another day in the life of Los Angeles. And we do have, let's move to item number 5, Roberto.
Are you skipping 3 and 4, Council?
For the moment, yes.
Okay. Item 5, council members, is a Department of Building and Safety proposed ordinance to amend the municipal code and to adopt the 2010 California Green Building Standards Code.
Okay, we have staff on item number 5. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, honorable councilmen, members. The state earlier this year adopted the 2010 Cal Green Code.
Some cool pictures. Please?
Yeah, my name is Osama Yuman with the Department of Building and Safety.
Yes.
And I'm here to report on the Cal Green Code, the adoption of the Cal Green Code.
You want to give us the Reader's Digest version?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Cal Green Code becomes effective January 1st, 2011, at which time we are mandated by state law to start enforcing it. Just like any other building code, the city can make amendments based on specific conditions set by the state. Earlier, on August 3rd, 2010, this year, the City Council gave us instruction, which was based on the Plum Committee's recommendation that we come up with a draft ordinance adopting the Green Code and expanding its applicability to include existing buildings, additions, and alterations over 200,000, and to come up with recommendations for additional requirements and to report on our staffing needs. Based on these instructions, we have to come up with a draft ordinance, and it covers existing buildings as we were instructed. It also adds some recommendations to have buildings be solar ready and electric vehicle ready, and to exceed the energy code requirements. As for staffing, We are, based on last year's data, which is conservative, we are estimated that over 7,600 projects would have to be plan checked and inspected by various disciplines. And based on that, we need 19 staff persons to properly enforce this code. In this ordinance, there is a 10% plan check fee and 10% surcharge on plan check fee and permit fees to cover the cost of these personnel. The city has an existing building program, green building program, which, unless we sunset it, we will have duplication of efforts among the two departments, being building and safety and planning is working on that on a separate track. Finally, building and safety is working with other jurisdictions within LA County to make sure we have consistency in the application of this code.
Well, first I want to thank you for your hard work. I understand that you've been very proactive. And this is one of those instances where we're trying to get ahead of the curve, given the mandates of state law. So we're actually trying to get in front of these conditions and a new direction, if you will. So I want to thank you personally for your hard work, because I know you've been out there walking the pavement and beating the bushes to make sure you get as many perspectives as possible. Councilman, you want to go through public comment, then we'll ask some questions, or you want to? Okay. So we'll ask you to come back and go through public comment, and then we'll come back. And again, let's call up Ms. Sandy Sanchez. Thank you, sir. Sandy Sanchez, and Williams, and Greg Wrights. Good afternoon, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you. On behalf of the members of the Building Industry Association, I want to thank you for the opportunity to comment on the City of Los Angeles' proposed adoption of the 2010 California Green Building Standards Codes, Cal Green. BIA and its member companies understand the city's interest in greening development projects. We support these efforts when they are well designed with an effective implementation plan that recognizes the physical and economic realities of development projects. We applaud city staff in their preparation of the Green Building Code and want to thank staff and Mr. Osama Yunin for reaching out to the BIA on how Cal Green would be implemented in the city. It has been a pleasure collaborating with Mr. Yonan to develop a code that is not only good for the environment, but also ensures new building construction will comply with the state's Cal Green Code. A well-vetted code will better serve the city's objective in becoming more green. BIA supports staff's proposed code recommendations that the Planning and Land Use Committee adopt Cal Green and the additional measures or add-ons to Cal Green, especially with the Department of Water and Power rebates that will keep the cost of construction under control and provide additional energy, water, and resource conservation above the state mandate. The rebates would also encourage builders and developers to seek additional green measures that are practical while not adding additional burdens to projects. In addition, we request that the Planning Commission sunset the existing ordinance and replace it with this more comprehensive code and avoid any duplicate or potential conflicts in the requirements with the city existing ordinance. Thank you very much.
And Madam Clerk, let's go with 1 minute, given the number of cards on all the items. We'll be here till 10 p.m. tonight, so we'll go to 1 minute and try to be as succinct as possible. I know we've written eloquent letters, but if you can get to the point, that'd be great. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Ann Williams with the Central City Association. We're very pleased to be here today and to support the Department of Building and Safety and the local implementation ordinance for Cal Green. Having a uniform mandatory code for all buildings will lead to more consistency and predictability and is a step in the right direction towards streamlining our development process. The savings on certification fees will lead to more buildings being built, more tax dollars coming to the city, and more jobs being created. This is a win-win situation. The ordinance is a more efficient and more enforceable way of going green, and we applaud the city for taking proactive steps to improve the business climate in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your succinctness. Will Wright? Will Wright here. Then we'll ask Martha Cox, the king, the recommend? I apologize.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon. Thank you for your
Good
time.
afternoon.
We do have a letter of support. I want to provide that to the public record.
Please.
Want to personally thank Osama and the LADBS for their leadership on this. Essentially, you've heard what the CCA has to say. That is exactly our sentiment. We do want to encourage you to look at ways to staff more people at LADBS because there will be quite a bit of implementation with regards to this, and we look forward to continuing to work on further refinements.
Thank you, sir. Martha Cox and Tickman.
That's pretty good. I'm with the Building Owners and Managers Association. We represent over 300 commercial office buildings in Los Angeles County. I'm going to be even briefer than the previous speakers. We have worked very closely with Salma Union. We were obviously concerned about the effect on existing commercial buildings and about the fees. We feel they're very reasonable, and we're really pleased with how the draft came out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Kimberly Whitman? Kimberlina Whitman? Kimberlina Whitten? Okay, not here. All right. So that concludes public comment. Councilman, any comments or any questions for our staff?
Yeah, I think it's a terrific work product, first of all. And I think that's reflected by the presence here of the business community and BIA in support. The question I have, I guess, has to do with the cost recovery and the fee structure, because it struck me that there's if you have a 10%, let's see, a 10% plan, check, and permit fee assessment on the mandatory components of this, and then an additional 5% plan, check, and permit fee for Tier 1 and Tier 2, for adoption of Tier 1 and Tier 2. Doesn't that create, however slight it might be, doesn't that create an economic disincentive to pursuing the exact policies that we want building owners to adopt, which is a higher level of efficiency and a higher level of green standards? It seems to me that by imposing a higher fee, and I understand there's more costs involved, the greener the building, the more costs there are, but it seems to me that creates a bit of a disincentive to pursuing what is our recognized citywide policy to move toward greater energy and water efficiency and so on.
Thank you, Councilman. The fees, as I mentioned, would be to recover our cost and to go that tier system. If someone decides, and that's not mandatory. A tier system is a building owner deciding to say, you know what, I want to be greener. I want Tier 1 to be put on my certificate of occupancy because I could improve the sale of my building. Whatever reason they may have, or maybe because they're getting incentives from Housing CRA or any other agency that says if you do Tier 1, we'll pay you so much money. So if that's the case and they come and ask us to voluntarily check those requirements, that is additional work for us, and there is many requirements that we have to do and check in addition to the mandatory. So the additional 5% is to recoup that cost. However, the point is well taken, and we do, as a city, offer incentives for going beyond minimum. We did that under our existing program by offering priority plan check, priority processing through planning, BOE, and so forth. And I believe the city will continue to offer incentives in that regards when they go Tier 1 or higher.
Incentives that would be at least as great as the increased cost of plan approval.
Right. And also, we are working with DWP to see if we can incentivize some of the requirements that would help them achieve the Tier 1.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm just glad that we are at a place where we got different perspectives, insight, and we got support. We have some instructions that will allow us to move this forward, and they would be to instruct the CEO to prepare a report on the proposed 10% plan check and permit fees, and the request for 19 position authorities to establish a green building division to enforce new codes and green technologies, code development, and providing training to staff and the construction industry. 2, request the city attorney prepare the ordinance. And 3, refer this file to the Budget and Finance Committee, and as much as there are 19 positions, authorities requested and a fee is being proposed. And that'll be the action of this committee. We have a second? So that'll be the action of this committee. Thank you, sir. Congratulations. I know this is a long haul. So good for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Next time, Roberto, we go back to the beginning.
Yes, council members, that takes us back to item 3. which is a draft ordinance which is proposing technical corrections to allow developments that combine residential and commercial uses as a mixed-use exception by removing reference to redevelopment project areas.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Gabriela Juarez, City Planning Department. The proposed ordinance before you today will maintain the incentivized higher residential density in the expiring redevelopment areas in the Central City Community Plan, and also removes their references and outdated terms in the zoning code. Lastly, the proposed ordinance also will allow commercial uses on any R5 zoned lots outside of the Central City Community Plan throughout the city through the existing conditional use permit process. Mixed-use development improves the quality of life for the city's residents by encouraging development to locate jobs and retail near housing, which is a more sustainable urban development pattern. City policies encourage mixed-use development in these areas, irrespective of the redevelopment project areas. The proposed ordinance coincides with the land use and future growth policies outlined in the general plan, as well as the department's strategic plan that prioritizes doing real planning. Mixed-use development improves the quality of life by locating these jobs with retail so that we can promote this environment, a sustainable environment, and the city's overall longevity. We recommend the adoption of the staff report, the findings in Attachment 1, the negative declaration in Attachment 2, and approval of the proposed draft ordinance as amended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Mr. Jim McQuiston. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Jim McQuiston. I want to make it very clear that I'm not proposing that we should stop this change. But as you've seen, I am very, very concerned on the budget, the cost impact on the city if we don't have those findings right. And the findings are not right. The Supreme Court and everyone else has said, this is what your findings have to be for this. I want to emphasize here that what we're doing is relaxing the code. We're relaxing the code. That means that people who were restricted by the code before are saying, well, gee whiz, why didn't you let us do that when we started? And that is what we have to cover with the findings, and we haven't done that. So we've got to fix that before we go any farther.
Thank you, Mr. McQuiston. And staff, can you respond to that, please?
Sure, Gabriela Juarez, Planning. We actually aren't making changes to any findings. The only change that we're doing is removing the reference to the redevelopment areas. This incentive that already exists in the code will just be codified without having to be in a redevelopment area as established by the CRA.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember, any questions? No? Okay, so we could approve and request city attorney to prepare the ordinance. We have a second? Second, I'll be back to this
Excuse me,
committee.
it's the planning department to prepare the ordinance with the assistance of the city attorney.
Ah, okay. A slight wrinkle there. Okay. So that will be the director of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Roberto.
Item 4, Councilman, again, is a draft ordinance, and this ordinance amends the conditional use permit regulations for FARs, and it averages them out in unified developments to allow the transfer of density in mixed-use unified developments.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Tanner Blackman, City Planning. Before you today is a proposed code amendment to revise the provisions of one singular conditional use permit, which is under the authority of the zoning administrator, and it functions as essentially a mini transfer of floor area rights within one project. So, for example, a developer can take the developable floor area and move it to the adjacent parcel. This has been around since 1990 and has enabled some very cool infill, historic preservation-oriented projects. As I was reviewing it, it came to our attention because we had to change this one reference to expiring CRA project areas. Under further examination, we noticed that most of the times this is used, it requires a variance as well to enable mixed-use projects to allow the moving of density along with the floor area. So we wanted to add that in as part of this conditional use permit, and that's all we're doing. All the other provisions stay the same findings, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jim McQuiston, on this item?
Yes. The problem of findings, of course, will be taken up by the Planning Commission. I think it's October 14th, so I don't want to get into that too much here. But we do have the same problem. This obviously is trying to overturn a decision, Philip Anaya versus the City of Los Angeles, in which this particular thing was found to be essentially unconstitutional by the Superior Court. And it's kind of like beating a dead horse. If we want to do something like this, what we really have to do is do some good planning instead of looking for ways to try to get around what we've done already. And I think the planning department can do that. But I don't think that this is a good idea to go on this averaging part. I don't have any problem with the FAR as long as, again, the findings have to be absolutely right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Queston. Would staff like to come on up and get a response for the record?
Excuse me, Council.
I just wanted to get a response from staff.
I would just like to invite Mr. McQuinton to the CPC hearing in October when we will be hearing the core findings code amendment that our unit is working on. But in respect to the actual case law he referenced, I would have to defer to the city attorney on that matter.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Terry Kaufman, Messiah City Attorney's Office. I'm not sure what case Mr. McQuiston is referring to. If it's a Superior Court case, it doesn't really have any bearing, but for legislative actions, findings are not required.
Okay, so our instructions will essentially approve and request the planning department along with the city attorney to prepare the ordinance. Got it right. Thank you very much. Does that have a second on that? Okay, we have a question from council member.
I think this is really sensible policy, but I have a question on the definition of unified development.
Staff, please. I have a question on unified development.
I'm not sure if this is changing from previous law, but it does appear, if you look at section 19C4, the beginning of that says, and when the development is viewed. So there's four segments of the definition. It says and. Is it the intention that the definition of unified development include all four of those elements?
That is, in fact, the intention. And these are it's not only the definition, but then these four items actually are the findings as well. So in order to approve this particular conditional use permit, the zoning administrator must find A, B, C, D, and E, that is all of these. And we thought about perhaps changing that since we were looking at this holistically. However, there has actually been litigation on that definition and a ZAI and things, so we didn't want to change it lightly.
Okay, very good, thanks.
Thank you. So with the direction from the committee, we can move forward. We'll have a second on the action of this committee. Thank you, sir. Let's see. Next we have, I believe is item 6, correct?
Yes, Councilman. That's a Planning Commission report and also a city attorney draft ordinance as it relates to super graphics and the Hollywood SUD.
Okay, what we'll do is we're going to change the process a little bit. We'll be hearing public comment first, since people have been patiently waiting. This is one of those extraordinary committee meetings. We're going longer than we anticipated. Roberto, you want to read it to the record? What is item 6?
Again, item 6 is a planning commission report relative to super graphics in the Hollywood SUD and a city attorney draft ordinance. This came about as a request of a motion by Councilman Garcetti.
Okay, so let's go through the cards. And we have with us Jacqueline Creer, Laurie Goldman, Larry Luchtel. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Afternoon, Councilman. I'm Lori Goldman, and I'm here in my capacity as a member of the Board of Directors of Central Hollywood Neighborhood Council. For identification purposes, I'm also on the board of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, Hollywood Heritage, Hollywood Arts Council, and I'm president of the Hollywood Freeway Central Park. Central Hollywood is bounded by Hollywood Boulevard on the north, La Brea on the west, El Centro on the east, and Melrose on the south. As the first certified neighborhood council in Hollywood, we wish to express our support of the proposed ban in Hollywood. Excuse me. Our Plum Committee and Board carefully evaluated the proposed ordinance because both our residential and business stakeholders are affected by the outcome. The Plum Committee heard testimony from many in support and against the ban. Our primary considerations were that 1, super graphics have resulted in a visual blight in our community. I'll go real fast. The lack of enforcement has resulted in a proliferation of super graphics beyond that which was anticipated. And 3, the economic argument put forth by the development community does not justify the continued visual degradation of our community.
Thank you, Ms. Goldman. Thank you very much. Again, I'll remind you to have a 1-minute clock, so next speaker, that way you can time yourself and get to your point as quick as possible. We have Jacqueline Creer. Is Jacqueline here? She left. Okay, we have Larry Luchtel. Is Larry here? Good afternoon, sir. Then we have Ann Williams. Is Ann here? Yes, okay. Good afternoon, sir.
My name is Larry Luchtel. I'm a resident of Hollywood for the last 24 years, actually just a 10-minute walk up from Highland and Hollywood. I'm in the area walking a good deal, and I've seen what's happened over the years with the super graphics, and I believe something's been lost in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and I think we're going to continue to lose more of that feeling of a destination that's different than many places around the world that are getting covered in advertisements. I think a ban is a very good thing for this enterprise to go forward and to protect Hollywood. And I'm sorry that the green building code that was just put in place doesn't include visual pollution, because I think that would then have an ordinance already, and in fact our movement toward keeping Hollywood, and I think the rest of LA, we can lead the rest of LA of keeping it clean. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. After Ann Williams, we'll have Veronica Perez, and then we'll have Gilbert Smith.
Good afternoon. I'm Ann Williams with the Central City Association. I'm here on behalf of our membership to oppose a prohibition on super graphics in the Hollywood Signage SUD, and also to oppose the Planning Commission's recommendation to retroactively limit the number and curtail the location of these signs. We feel that these actions would undermine the very purpose of the district and establish a bad policy. We understand that super graphics are not appropriate in all parts of the city, but Hollywood has been specifically designated as a place where this kind of large-scale advertising actually enhances the urban environment and adds an element of an excitement. A prohibition or even new limitations on super graphics in the Hollywood SUD sets a dangerous precedent for future development across the city. In addition to the super graphics issue, I'm also here to speak in support of protecting the right of businesses in the Hollywood Signage SUD and across the city to continue to utilize appropriate on-site signage, and we support the comments that you'll hear from Veronica Perez in a minute. Publicly declaring that goods and services offered at a location is one of the most fundamental and cost-effective tools a business has, and we believe the answer is enforcement of existing laws regarding on-site signs.
We're really close. Thank you very much. Veronica Perez.
Good afternoon, council members. Veronica Perez from the law firm of Holland and Knight. I represent the California Sign Association. Over the last 2 years, CSA has been working closely with an on-site sign coalition, including CCA, the Chamber, VICA, BOMA, New Car Dealers, Hotel Association, on issues affecting on-site signage. The draft before you today purports to greatly restrict on-site electronic signs for businesses. However, since that draft came out, our coalition has been working closely with Council President Garcetti's office as well as the Planning Department, and we have reached a compromise that we are here to support today. Council President Garcetti's office will be discussing that as well as the Planning Department. They made the recommendation to the City Planning Commission. The CPC endorsed that recommendation, and we're here to respectfully request that you also adopt that recommendation from Council President Garcetti's office, the business community, and CPC, and basically that is to adopt for the most part, the 2009 draft of this ordinance as it relates to on-site electronic signs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Councilman Reyes and committee members. I'm Gilbert Smith, and I am chair of the Ricardo Montalban Foundation, owner and operator of the Ricardo Montalban Theater in Hollywood. As opposed to Supergraphics being a villain, this is a picture of our theater back in 1940, as it was the CBS Lux Radio Theater with Supergraphics over the top. We support the continued use of graphics because the entertainment industry is basically in need of having temporary signage, which is part of this ban. We have to have premieres. We are Hollywood. We are the entertainment community. It's not just super graphics. It is a unique statement to communicate to the world that we do have new forms of movies, live entertainment, and other events that take place in Hollywood that make it unique. So please take into consideration the ordinance of 2007, and let's get it field tested first before we start changing things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We have Maya Fuller, I believe, Brian Curran, and Laron Gubler. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Maya Zettler on behalf of VICA. First of all, I'm here to support the testimony presented by Veronica Perez that you heard earlier and support the compromise discussed to allow on-site digital signage in this SUD. Secondly, I'd like to express VICA's opposition to efforts to prohibit supergraphics in this Hollywood SUD area. We are in opposition to the recommendation to also retroactively limit the number and the location of signs. We feel strongly that prohibiting supergraphics in an established SUD undermines the very purpose of this carefully crafted district. It also sets a dangerous precedent for future development across the entire city, which is something that is a great concern to VICA. We understand that supergraphics are not appropriate in all parts of the city. However, Hollywood is an area where there is a collective agreement that well-regulated advertising can actually enhance the look and the feel of the neighborhood. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am.
Brian Curran, Vice President, Hollywood Heritage. Hollywood Heritage enthusiastically supports Councilman Garcetti's proposed ban on supergraphics in Hollywood. For too long, lax and inconsistent enforcement has led to significant damage to historic structures and the obscuring of their facades from view. Supergraphics are in general illegal for use on historic buildings and inappropriate when covering key architectural elements and facades. Hollywood Heritage has worked for years to protect historic resources of Hollywood from the blight of supergraphics and has been delighted by recent enforcement efforts. We urge the Plum Committee to join Councilman Garcetti and other residents in Hollywood in rejecting the proposed changes of the CPC and supporting the ban as originally proposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Laron Gubler, President CEO of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, here to urge you to adopt the recommendations of the Planning Commission. The Chamber believes these recommendations were considered and thoughtful and are a compromise that should work for everyone. It achieves the goals that Councilmember Garcetti hoped to achieve, but it also addresses some of the economic issues. Now, the concerns that the Chamber has is that the proposal that was approved in July by the Council does not take into effect the economic impacts and potential loss of projects as approved. While the Council member does include some grandfathering, it does not affect all projects that are in the pipeline. The Chamber has been in touch with some of the major future developers. And let me tell you, as recently as yesterday, we've been told by developers that if you pass the ordinance as proposed in July, it could effectively kill the proposed 400-room hotel adjacent to the Hollywood Palladium and the proposed 320-room Highland Center Hotel. These projects represent jobs for Los Angeles, and we hope that you'll consider the Planning Commission recommendation. I have a letter here with my full comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sam Smith, Craig Lawson, Christopher Coons, and we'll have Catherine Hennigan. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Sam Smith. I'm chairman of the board of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. But more importantly, I'm a 30-year resident of downtown Hollywood. I've watched the revitalization and the renaissance of this city, and I think it's ironic that today, the same genius that helped bring about that renaissance is the genius that's proposing a complete ban of super graphics. This is part of what has made Hollywood work. It's part of what has brought about this renaissance, and we would please ask that you support the Planning Commission's recommendations, as they are an excellent compromise that we can all live with, and the future of Hollywood continue to be secured. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Craig Lawson.
Mr. Chair, Councilman Krikorian, glad to be here today on behalf of several projects in Hollywood. I'm a land use consultant who's been working on the supergraphic signage issue for many years. The original intent was for supergraphics to help to demonstrate the unique nature of Hollywood, to create a sense of place. Some of the signs that you see today are the legally approved signs that were approved under the sign district. Others are not. They're illegal signs. But it's difficult to get a clear view of what Hollywood would look like if the intended signage program was being followed and enforced. There are a number of proposed projects, some of them going back several years, that are still pending in the city's entitlement process, which include signage as a component of their architectural design. These projects are important to the future of Hollywood, and we've worked closely with Council President Garcetti and with Catherine Hennigan on language that would allow these projects to move forward with signage with the language that's before you today. So if you choose to approve this, I urge that you support Section 6K of the draft ordinance, and that's the one I'm referring to. Thank you so much.
Christopher Coons, then we'll have the council office, Catherine Hennigan.
Good late afternoon, members of the committee. Christopher Coons on behalf of Councilman Paul Koretz. What Councilman Koretz would like to ask you to do is to adopt this item, but to restore the full ban on new supergraphics within the supplemental use district as originally envisioned. We respectfully disagree with the decision that the Planning Commission made. We feel that the original intention of the supplemental use district, if we sort of step back, was not just about super graphics. It was about a lot of different things. It was about restoring old Hollywood and allowing lit open roof signs and allowing some of the really unique aspects of Hollywood. And the thing about public policy is we all have to learn and look at the consequences. And what we've seen with the super graphic portion is that super graphics cover striking architecture. That's sort of the least of the problem. The more pervasive problem is that buildings are designed to have large blank walls so that you can plaster a super graphic on it. And that was never the goal that we had for Hollywood. That's not what we want to see in Hollywood. So we would ask that you adopt this item but restore the full ban on new super graphics.
Thank you, sir. Catherine Hennigan. She's racing around. There she is. Okay. The home stretch.
Good afternoon, council members. So in front of you, I think you guys have the language, so I won't read the entire portions of the ordinance into the record. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Catherine Hennigan, speaking on behalf of Council President Eric Garcetti. I'm here to ask for your support of Council President Garcetti's Hollywood Supplemental Use District. The Hollywood Signage SUD was adopted in October of 2003. At that time, off and off-site signage was becoming an important factor in the economics of developing major commercial and entertainment facilities, such as the Hollywood and Highland project. Because of the difficulty in obtaining construction loans for major developments in the area, unique sign programs were developed by the project developers and the CRA agency staff to permit off-site advertising on various sign structures through the use of special legislation exempting these projects from municipal code sign regulations and the CRA design for development. The purpose of the Hollywood Signage Ordinance was to acknowledge and promote the continuing contribution of signage to the distinctive aesthetic of Hollywood while managing and controlling blight created by poorly placed, badly designed signs. The Hollywood Signage Supplemental Use District contains regulations for sign development for commercial and industrial properties within the boundaries of the district. The current regulations permit such signage as temporary special displays, blade signs, skyline logos, rooftop signage, electric signs, including regulations for signage on recognized historic structures, including regulations regarding the size and density of permitted signage, and including regulations permitting super graphics and solid panel rooftop signs in return for the reduction of existing off-site advertising signs in other locations within the Hollywood Community Plan area. That's kind of the history. So today, however, we have reached a point where the positives of the super graphics in Hollywood do not outweigh the negatives. The time has come to say no more and enact a ban on new super graphics in Hollywood. We have heard loudly and clearly from the neighborhood residents that enough is enough, that this signage is detracting from their quality of life. This ban is about ensuring we have a Hollywood we can be proud of, one that is attractive to residents, tourists, businesses, and shoppers alike. And this ban is about promoting a Hollywood economy that prioritizes jobs, one that promotes a model for existing buildings and new developments predicated on filling structures with companies and workers, and not simply serving as little more than three-dimensional billboards. In February 2009, this committee considered the City Planning Commission report and draft ordinance, which amended the Council President's Hollywood SUD ordinance. In March 2009, the Council requested the City Attorney prepare and present the final draft ordinance for Council consideration. From that time until now, progress was delayed due to the litigation of the Worldwide Rush case. During that time, many new developments that included super graphics arose in Hollywood, making it imperative that we act without undue delay. Council members, we are here to request your continued support of our revisions and to support our ban. We do want to thank the City Planning Commission for their thoughtful recommendations. Very rarely does our office envision planning policy differently. The CPC recommendations before you, however, outline several suggestions we cannot support. The cap on the total number of super graphics, confining new super graphics into geographic areas, the reestablishment of solid panel portions of open panel roof signs, and the increase in square footage of super graphics do not fall in line with the recommendations because they allow additional super graphics. Still, we would like to see a number of CPC's recommendations incorporated. The grandfathering language proposed is important and should be included in order to ensure consistency with state law, and you have that language before you, and I also provided it to the city clerk. Along with the grandfathering language, we would also like to add in the tolling language, which you also have before you, and we've submitted to the city clerk. Adding this language will allow for applicants to obtain permits for existing projects in the pipeline. Many property owners adhered to the SUD regulations. Projects in the pipeline worked with the city to make sure they were in compliance with city regulations, and these projects should be able to proceed according to the instructions provided by the city in the past. In addition, the technical corrections include reverting to the existing 2009 CPC recommended language pertaining to digital displays. We support continuing to allow digital displays on existing marquees as well as digital display wall signs subject to the height and location regulations, as well as the new on-site digital wall signs. We feel it important to hear back from the city planning, on the effectiveness of these new regulations. At the end of the day, however, the negative economic impacts, visual blight, and overconcentration warrant a ban on super graphics within the Hollywood SUD. It's important to know that throughout the development of this ban, we've worked closely with the neighborhood residents, community organizations, and extensively with the business community, and this ban represents a policy that best serves the entire Hollywood community. Our recommended changes reflect the countless meetings, phone calls, and hearings our office has held relating to signage in the last several years. Honorable members of the committee, I respectfully request that you move forward the ban of new super graphics along with the Council 13 recommendations and request the city attorney to make requested corrections to the ordinance. And thank you very much for joining Council President Garcetti in tackling this critical issue.
Thank you.
And I provided to you guys, just because this is a little all convoluted, exactly what our recommendations are and the language. And there was just one correction in regards to the reverting back to the 2008, 2009 digital display language. The city attorney advised me there should be a correction on that. Michael, where did Michael? I would ask that Michael Bostrom.
Okay. Well, let's do this, because out of courtesy to folks that have been waiting, and we're trying to move this agenda along, so I appreciate everybody waiting for their respective item. We went ahead with public comment, but we should have a report, a abbreviated report from the staff on what we're acting on for the record.
Okay.
So the staff, can you give us the Reader's Digest version of what we just heard in public comment and what's been recommended by the council office?
Yes, sir. Kevin Keller, City Planning. I'm joined here by Blake Lamb and Jordan Turner. I'm going to give you the quick story of why we're here and help frame this issue. The Hollywood SUD obviously is in the Hollywood Community Plan area. In 2007, the department working with the council offices launched a revision to streamline some of the enforcement issues we were dealing with, tighten up some of the language, and we moved forward in 2007 and 2008 on public hearings and workshops. That version of the ordinance came to Plum in February of 2009. It was then forwarded on to the city attorney. For a variety of reasons, including litigation and other sign-related issues, that version did not emerge until this summer. So in July of 2010, the 2008-2009 version of this ordinance moved to City Council for a final consideration and adoption. At that time, a motion was made to amend the proposal to include a ban on supergraphics. The prior recommendation had been to revise the supergraphic program, but to keep it as an ongoing operational item. Very rarely do we do this, but according to the charter, when a significant change of that nature, and I think everyone in the room agrees it's a significant issue to discuss, due to the significance of that change, the charter requires that the item is reheard by the Planning Commission to weigh in specifically on that proposal. So what planning did is we took the item back to our Planning Commission to get their input on the proposal to ban the supergraphic program. We took it in July, we took it again in August, and there was a decision made. Quite simply, and I think we also, planning worked a lot with everyone, I think, in the room. Looks familiar at this point. But I think I just wanted to help frame that discussion. It then gets returned back to you, so we are back here to report back on behalf of the Planning Commission what the Planning Commission endorsed for your consideration moving forward. The Plum Committee has options. Obviously, the planning recommendation was not to move forward with the ban on supergraphics, and instead the Planning Commission was able to move a motion on an alternative. So adopting the ban would require a supermajority of council. However, the council can do that. I just want to spend 1 second to summarize the alternative, and then I'm going to hand it off to Blake to quickly walk through what that means. Basically, the City Planning Commission voted to recommend, in lieu of a ban, to recommend a cap on the number of supergraphics and to further limit the geography of those actions. There were a number of other more detailed items, but that's essentially what's before you. So if we can present that on behalf of the Commission, that's what we're here to do, and then it's up to the Plum Committee to move forward as they would like to do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Blake Lamb with the Planning Department. The last page of the package that was handed out to you shows a map of the current Hollywood sign district. There are 48 super graphics that have been approved within the sign district boundaries. Of those 48, 35 have been constructed. 13 of those have been approved by the Planning Department but are not yet constructed. Many of these signs have had a billboard reduction program component, so in order to gain approval for a new super graphic, billboards must be removed within the Hollywood Community Plan area. Some of these signs have also had an agreement with the CRA doing a combination of in lieu fee with billboard reduction program. So what the Planning Department recommended when we presented this to them on August 26th was to reduce the boundaries of the areas where super graphics would be located. So the map on the very last page of the package shows 2 geographic areas that would be the location where super graphics could be located. Currently, within Area 1, the Hollywood Highland area, there are 16 super graphics that have been approved. Within the second area, which is the Vine Corridor extending from Hollywood Boulevard to Sunset, there are 26 existing super graphics. The City Planning Commission recommended that there be a cap on the total number of super graphics permitted within the sign district. They set the cap at 60. Because 48 signs have already been approved, that means 12 additional super graphics could be approved to be located within one of those 2 areas that's identified on the map. Another recommendation from the City Planning Commission was to restore solid panel roof signs as an approved sign type. Basically, this is a solid panel portion of an open panel roof sign, similar to a solid panel billboard. The City Planning Commission recommended this sign type to be removed back in 2009. However, they recommended the sign type to be restored back into the ordinance. Another recommendation from the Planning Commission was to restore the super graphic ratio. Currently, in the current ordinance, for every 1 square foot of billboard that is removed, an applicant may receive credit to establish 2 square feet of super graphic signs. Back in 2009, this ratio was adjusted by the City Planning Commission down to 1.75 square feet of super graphic sign for each square foot of billboard removed. However, the City Planning Commission has recommended that that ratio be restored back to the original 2 square feet of super graphic for every 1 square foot of billboard removed. Finally, the City Planning Commission included grandfathering language to ensure that the amended ordinance would not apply to any project permit or specific plan exception that was approved for a super graphic sign prior to November 12th, 2008, which is the date of a public hearing that City Planning staff held regarding this ordinance. The City Planning Commission also recommended including language regarding grandfathering in certain projects which had received vesting tentative tract map approvals. There were some additional instructions to planning staff, which basically comprised planning staff preparing additional research and information to report back to the City Planning Commission at a later date.
Thank you.
Kevin Keller again. I have one more clarification which I think will be helpful as the Plum Committee debates this issue. There's been a lot of talk about digital displays. Obviously, the super graphics are the main issue in front of this body. The issue of digital displays, the Planning Commission did endorse the proposal to move back to essentially the status quo on digital displays. Currently, the sign district allows digital displays. It does have time, place, and manner locations that are very strict. For example, none of the billboard conversions were allowed in this area because we already had very strict time, place, manner standards. That being said, I believe there's a number of parties in the audience that are here merely to make sure that those remain in place. So both the Planning Commission did endorse keeping our existing digital display language, which would allow for new digital display wall signs and conversions of marquees in the specified areas. So that issue, I believe, has been resolved if the Plum Committee would direct to stick with basically the essential current regulations. So I just want to add that to help clarify the issues in front of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's a lot of movement there. Councilor Rennie, well, it's obvious to me that the council office has done a lot of work, and what has put us in a pause, if you will, would be the Worldwide Rush decision. And once that was made, we were able to move forward under the umbrella of of a concerted effort as a city in dealing with these legal issues. And with that context in mind, we're listening to the council office look at how that area wants to be defined. I respect the commission's work and what they were trying to achieve, but they obviously went to a number that was not acceptable to the council office. I went to 60. There's 38 currently right now, did you say? 38 signs that are up already?
Right. How many? 48 signs are approved, and of those, 35 are currently
35,
installed.
so
Correct.
it is moving forward. It's not like it's being denied. So there's still future signs that will be realized. Councilman, any thoughts? I would move that we support the council office on this, knowing that they are working with the constituents, and Councilman Garcetti has been in the trenches dealing with this issue and trying to achieve that balance. And City Attorney, any other advice or observations?
May I make a recommendation? We submitted to the City Clerk just a moment ago some proposed additional findings on the topic of vested rights and tolling. Ms. Macias previously indicated to you that it's not required to have findings for legislation, but as you know very well, the courts are looking very closely at what we're doing, and in this instance, we think it's helpful to just explain the basis behind the tolling and the vested rights and the grandfathering that CD 13 has requested. And so in consultation with the council office and planning department, we have drafted proposed findings that kind of explain why it is we're doing grandfathering and vested rights and tolling in the manner that we're doing it. And so we would request that you also recommend those findings be adopted.
So we would move to approve the city attorney's ordinance and to adopt the findings as stated by the city attorney for the record, and not approve the city planning commission report. Would you have a second on that?
There's actually going to be a slight modifications to the ordinance that have been submitted to you based upon what the council deputy has requested, which includes some modifications to the digital displays, which would include allowing off-site signage.
So we can simply say approve the city attorney's ordinance with the submitted changes as indicated by the council office.
Correct.
And essentially not approve the city planning commission report. Are we good with that?
And the council office has just requested that I clarify that off-site signage for digital displays in terms of marquee signs is limited to existing marquee signs. You don't get to put up a new marquee sign and then convert it to a digital display. I know that's convoluted, just to kind of further clarify.
Does anybody not want to make this flow even nicer?
And adopt the findings.
Adopt the findings, okay. All right, then there will be a second on that?
Do we have those most recent changes in front of us someplace?
So you have a most recent draft. The two additional changes would be, maybe one additional change would be the allowance. Those are the findings, correct? But the modification to the ordinance would be to allow off-site signage on digital displays. That's in it, yeah.
Okay. Now, are we sure yet? Okay.
I can just, Kevin Keller, and I appreciate the city attorney's insight on this. That is entirely consistent with the City Planning Commission recommendation as it purports to digital displays. It's actually technically continuing to allow off-site signage. We're not allowing new off-site signage. I know that's like a flag that goes up. But it is continuing to essentially allow the same types of rules on digital displays that were already in place. Just for the record, that would allow new digital wall signs subject to the time, place, manner restrictions already proposed, and it would allow the conversion of existing theater marquees, such as the one we see on the El Capitan Theater, to have a digital face on it. Those would continue to be allowing off and on-site signage, but that is an existing regulation. So planning staff has submitted on behalf of the Planning Commission. They endorsed that concept. That's the same concept we're talking about, but just want to clarify it.
Just for the record, the city attorney's nodding yes, and so is the council office, so everyone's in agreement at this point. Anything else, Councilmember? No? Okay. So that would be the action of this committee. There's been a second. Madam Clerk, do you need more clarity, or should we write it for you?
Yes, just for the record, Councilman, please let me know if I'm correct, but you are approving the recommendations of Council District 13, and you are requesting the city attorney to prepare the final ordinance and present to council. You're also adopting the findings as submitted, as attached to the file, and also submitted by city attorney today.
Beautiful. All right. Okay, and it's past 5. We're doing good, guys. All right. Submit the actions committee. Good job, Madam Clerk. And next item, Roberto.
That would be item 7, but I believe there's a request for a continuance, Councilman.
So that's been continued for 1 week.
Right.
Item number 7.
So that takes us to item 9, which is an appeal by Chris Shabu and Doug Haynes. They're appealing a track map which was approved by the Central APC as it relates to a 22-unit residential condo building in CD 13.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Lucy Ibarra with the Planning Department. Before you is an appeal to a track map modification and mitigated negative declaration that was approved by the Area Planning Commission on appeal. It was for a 22-unit residential condominium utilizing density bonus, the density bonus ordinance with incentives for FAR, and then parking options. And then the appeal in question addressed some shade and shadow issues associated with the height, some aesthetic issues associated with the character of the neighborhood, and then some procedural issues associated with the public hearing that was not held because the code does not require public hearing for modifications on tentative track maps, nor on density bonus projects utilizing on-menu incentives. I understand that the applicant has modified the project in working with the council office and allow that consultant to elaborate on that. They did submit a letter addressing some of the issues that would be changed to the determination to allow the modified project. I just want to point out that one of the requests was to waive dedications, widening and improvements, and we just asked that in that specific regard, that any existing damage or damage associated with construction, that they continue to improve that, if that's what's under consideration.
Okay. So we have Peggy Trento, I believe is the applicant. I'd like to, good afternoon.
Hi, my name is Peggy Trento with Craig Lawson and Company. I represent West Coast Legacy LLC, the applicant, and I would like to go over these changes that have been proposed in response to concerns that we've heard from the community. First, this project has been changed from a mixed income building to an all affordable building, 100% affordable project. In terms of the physical changes to the project, they're outlined numbers 1 through 4 in a letter that I believe has been distributed to you. They are, first, a reduction in building height from the approved 56 feet to 54 feet. Number 2, a waiver of street dedications that the planning staff has already addressed. Number 3, a reduction in the allowable density that's been approved at 22 units, reducing it to 21 units. And finally, the provision of parking in compliance with parking option 2 in lieu of parking option 1. We'll note that we're still compliant with the density bonus ordinance and the municipal code. We concur with the proposed addendum for the MND that addresses these changes, and we'd like you to please take action to approve this project with these changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Trento. Wow, on the minute. Doug Haynes. And then we'll have Noel Weiss.
Doug Haynes, and also on behalf of Chris Chabelle, she's unfortunately very ill and couldn't attend today. I'd just like to state we appreciate greatly Councilman Garcetti's support of our appeal and work towards putting in these conditions in support of the community. And the community looks forward to participating further in changes to the footprint of this building as those discussions proceed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Noel Weiss.
Mr. Reyes, Mr. Krikorian, I would ask that since this is one of those projects, those density bonus projects that may be destroying more affordable housing than is being created, that at least some effort be made by the council to inquire what the factual circumstances are relating to that issue. Secondly, we're talking about the concessions or the incentives. I believe the protocol should be that the incentives or the concessions that are sought have to be justified economically and not just blanketly given. And I would again like some record reflected by your questions of the applicant as to whether or not they submitted any kind of a pro forma, economic pro forma, which would demonstrate why they need the incentive or concession in order to make the project pencil out as they propose. We've never done that, and again, I think that as part of the process going forward, we need to revisit and see what is going on with these SB 1818 cases in general, and when you have a specific case, I ask
Thank you, sir.
You try to make the record, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you very much. Next, Catherine Hennigan, in Council Office.
My testimony is much shorter this time. Catherine Hennigan on behalf of Council President Eric Garcetti's office. We've been working on this case with the community and the applicants and the appellants for the last several months, and all along the process we had been asking the developer to lower the height of the building, which we were finally able to agree to. So they're willing voluntarily to bring down the building from 56 feet to 45 feet, reduce the number of units from 22 to 21. The prior project was going to be providing 3 units of affordable housing. Now it's going to be 100% affordable. And they're utilizing parking option number 2 instead of 1, so they went from 40 parking spaces to 21, which our office promotes. And we'd ask that you approve in part and deny in part the appeals filed by Chris Chabelle and Doug Haynes on this case regarding the property at 1254 through 1258 North Gower Street, and 6080 West Fountain Avenue, and by 5 main points: limit the structure to 45 feet in height. The council office is going to work with the Bureau of Engineering and Planning Department to waive the widening requirement on those streets. The community in our office feels they don't need to be widened. Limit the structure to a maximum allowable residential density of 21 units. And parking shall be in compliance with the density bonus ordinance, and modify their environmental to analyze the project changes. And that's it. So we're really happy that the appellant and the applicant could work together to reduce the size of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And Madam Attorney?
Terry Kaufman, Messiah City Attorney's Office. As I've said many times, voluntary conditions are not enforceable. Thank you. They're not enforceable. So it seems to me, since this was looked at in an environment, these were looked at in an environmental document, that the committee could probably find that these conditions are necessary to mitigate project impacts based on the evidence in the record, and so that you just make them regular standard conditions and not make them voluntary.
Okay, so as we allow for the entitlement to move forward, these conditions become part of the project, as stated.
Right, and not voluntary.
Okay. Councilman, any questions? Okay, so that'll be the action of this committee, and congratulations. Okay, next item, Roberto.
It takes us, council members, to item 11, which is an appeal by Philip Dorsey, and they're appealing part of the decision of the Planning Commission that allow the construction of 56 dwelling units. It's an affordable housing development in Eagle Rock in CD14.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sarah Molina Pearson, Department of City Planning. This is an appeal of an approval of a conditional use to allow the construction of 56 residential dwelling units in the QC2-1VL-CDO zone with 28 parking spaces for the property located at 4258 through 4260 North Eagle Rock Boulevard. 55 of the 56 units are designated for very low income, for veterans, the developmentally disabled, and seniors. The conditional use was necessary for this project because the Q condition limits the density on the site to the RD 1.5 zone, which would only allow for 13 units on the site. The other entitlements that were also approved include site plan review, community design overlay, and 5 density bonus incentives. The 3 on-menu incentives were to include a 35% increase in the allowable FAR, a height increase of 11 feet to maximum height of 56 feet, and a 20% decrease in open space. There were also 2 off-menu incentives that were approved. The first is to allow 28 parking spaces, and the second was to allow a 100% residential project. This is because the Q condition also prohibits 100% residential projects. I want to stress that the density bonus portion of this project is not appealable, so at this time only the conditional use is being heard. I also want to point out that most of the appellant's comments address the density bonus approvals and not the conditional use portion. And last, I just want to point out that the applicant did do a very good job of working with CD14. They incorporated a lot of the changes that the council office recommended in their design, and in turn they did receive their full support at City Planning Commission. They also received support from the Eagle Rock Neighborhood Council, in which they have jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the staff? Seeing none. Let's hear from the appellant. The appellant on record. Please introduce yourself, please.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak before you. My name is Philip Dorsey Glauer. I am a resident of Eagle Rock and also a business owner in Glassell Park, which is the adjacent community to the proposed project on Eagle Rock Boulevard. I would like to just summarize my reasons for the appeal as succinctly as possible by enumerating them. The first was the problem with outreach, and that has to do with the designation of it being in the Eagle Rock community, where it's actually located at the very far south end of Eagle Rock and is adjacent to Glassell Park. Just across the street is Glassell Park, technically. But no outreach was made to Glassell Park until after the appeal deadline had ended. In addition to that, on the Eagle Rock Neighborhood Council website, there was no mention of this project, so there really wasn't any way for residents who are outside of the Neighborhood Council board to be aware of it. Second, I would like
Please continue.
Thank you very much. The long-term planning goals. That is, the CDO of this area is that proposed projects be mixed use. In this project, the mixed use is a community room, which is unnecessary due to the fact that there is already a large community center at the public storage unit down the street. In addition, the parking that community room would be presumably only for residents, as there is no visitor parking and there is insufficient parking in general for that community room. Third, I would like to address the precedents that this would make. There is great concern that when land use laws are not taken seriously, it makes a case for developers to further weaken them. Land use laws are established for a reason. Community members volunteer their time to work to implement these laws because they have a specific vision of how they want their communities to be developed. Third is the specifics of the parking. This is the main thrust of my appeal. There is insufficient parking. There are currently 56 proposed units, and there are 28 parking spaces. That's a half a parking space per residential unit. If this had a commercial use attached to the project, more parking, even more parking would be required, and that isn't available. Also, a community center as a commercial use should require visitor parking at a minimum, which is not available. So they have a community room that ostensibly would be available to people at the residence and outside the residence, but they do not provide parking for people outside the residence. Fourth, affordable housing is a laudable goal, but if you have 56 affordable housing units and 4 floors, you would think that and especially if these affordable housing units are for handicapped, developmentally disabled, and elderly, that they would provide more than one elevator to service all 56 units. If there's an emergency, if an emergency vehicle has to come to the facility and that elevator is in use, that would severely deter them or prohibit them from getting to the unit that they need to get to. So more than one elevator should be provided. Fifth, I believe this project can be easily improved with just modest modifications to the proposal, just by providing additional parking. By providing additional parking, it would better serve the people living at the residence, and it would also better serve the community surrounding the residence by providing a commercial use to facilities there, to space there. In conclusion, I would just like to simply summarize. I believe that the outreach during the time when residents and stakeholders could significantly and meaningfully make modifications to the proposal was inadequate. Outreach was inadequate. Second, the long-term planning goals, the CDO, was basically dismissed. It's not regarded significantly. Third, there's a dangerous precedent being set by allowing so many waivers and variances. Again, the parking situation.
Thank you, sir.
And I would just like to thank you again for giving me this opportunity to speak before you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your patience. Chandler Grace will be next. And then Eric Lieberman. Good afternoon. No, you're first, Chandler. Or whatever you guys want to do it.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm China Grace, and I'm the CEO of Works, and this is a 100% affordable housing development except for one unit, which is for the on-site resident manager. We would be serving homeless veterans, 25%, 35% developmentally disabled, and the remainder seniors who, by affordable housing standards, it's a half a space per unit. We feel that we have sufficient parking, developmentally disabled, and we have someone here who can speak to that, who is the supportive service provider for developmentally disabled, do not drive. Homeless veterans who will be, we're working with Weingart Center downtown, who serve homeless veterans, and their biggest need is housing after they come out of transitional situation. So I think in your packet,
please conclude.
Show that there is definitely a need. We have mitigated for one elevator is to fire life safety. We will actually have in the stairwell a special device that allows, in case of emergencies, for folks to be able to help people down the stairs in an easy, comfortable way. Our people will not be, they're independent.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Eric Lieberman. And then we'll have Dr. Clyde Williams.
Good afternoon. Eric Lieberman representing Works and China Grace. Just real quick for the sake of time, of just a few minutes. This project was established really based on demonstrated need in the community for the developmentally disabled veterans and seniors for housing. It fulfills a very specific need for affordable housing. The Commission recognized that. The Eagle Rock Neighborhood Council recognized that as well. As far as the outreach was concerned, they went by what the records showed as Eagle Rock being the demonstrated jurisdictional neighborhood council. When Glassell Park brought to our attention that they had some interest in it, the applicant started putting forth efforts to communicate with them early, actually back in June, and we couldn't coordinate with them because they kept delaying meetings. They were going through restructuring, and that's why it took so long, but they did eventually end up before the Glassell Park Neighborhood Council, and I witnessed their effort to do so above and beyond really what was required. So they deserve due credit for that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Clyde Williams. And then we'll have Kelly Gibhart. Good afternoon, sir.
Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno, Northeast LA, member of the LA 32 Neighborhood Council Executive Board. We're quite concerned about the loss of mixed units because, as indicated by your item 10, commercial units can become focal points for the local community. It's one of the places where people come together, finally. And to have a solely residential unit in an area which is zoned for mixed use, where we're trying to get more commercial in order to give more services to the local community and to those associated with that corridor, we're quite concerned about the elimination and total loss of commercial for this property. Couldn't they have at least had a couple of units of commercial storefronts? A Starbucks, maybe? I don't know.
Thank you, sir. Carolee Gebhardt. And then we'll have Sue Hernandez.
I'm here because I think that having buildings for the elderly and the disabled, that they, when they have a place of their own, they are comfortable. A lot of them want to be, on their own. And I'm just hoping that you will see that maybe this will be a good thing. And as far as parking goes, most of the disabled do not drive. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Sue Hernandez and then Noel Weiss.
I am here to oppose Mr. Dorsey's appeal and his recommendations, as well as the recommendations for more commercial space. My concern is that these recommendations will not allow the project to move forward. It will not allow the feasibility for it to be built. And we do need housing for these community members. They are people that are among the most vulnerable. Housing for our elders is a must. Housing to house our veterans that need a helping hand, who so graciously have served our country, and housing for the disabled who have to give them the opportunity to live on their own. As far as commercial space goes, from what I can tell, most of the commercial spaces in the area are vacant or are used for things that are necessarily benefit to the community. Having a community space in there, in my familiarity with Works, they have among the most thriving community spaces that I can recall in all my years working in affordable housing. So I definitely would support the continued development as is of this development.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Then Noel Weiss. Then we'll have Frank Tamburello.
Council members, same issue with regard to any density bonus project. I think, again, it would help the community, and I'm not talking about the merits of it, because if it's merited, great. All the more important for the council and the public to develop the data, the economic data that goes into these SB 1818 projects, because that is a component of whether or not the developer really needs the incentive or the concession. And in the absence of that information, Mr. Reyes and Mr. Krikorian, the people don't know whether or not there are other alternative concessions or incentives that may be required. I think the record should reflect what the concessions and incentives are and what the economics are. And the only way that happens is if the planning department is given that information and the public is given that information, and you inquire about the information, and then over time hopefully we'll get the kind of public discourse that will, I think, inform the policymakers and the people, so that you can get these kinds of projects consistent with what the law requires, and then the true purpose of the law can be accomplished in a manner that everybody finds hopefully closer to satisfactory.
Thank you, sir. Frank Tamburello and Doris Weiss.
Good afternoon. I'm Frank Tamburello from Hunger Action LA, a coalition of low-income residents and service providers. We support Works in their proposal for 56 units of housing. Works is not just a housing provider, but is promoting locally grown food and nutritious eating via all their projects. These are central issues for health, the environment, and future economic sustainability of LA. They're participating in food security in the broader community in very visible and commendable ways. There are gardens on their properties where seniors are growing fresh fruits and vegetables. There's an organic produce market that we're collaborating with them in. This is a project in which all low-income residents from around the neighborhood can get affordable food at a lower price. This is what they need in Wilmington Avenue, the issue that was discussed earlier today, the DEMA market. And this is what we need is more of our vets returned from Iraq and Afghanistan, and you know that many of them are going to be homeless. It happens in every war. The presence of a works project in any area will enhance the community. The architectural design of their housing, such as at Pisgah and Highland Park, improves the neighborhood aesthetics. And the focus on health provides a point of activity for all residents.
Thank you, sir. Doris Weiss? And thank you for your patience.
My name is Doris Wise. I work for the Eastern Los Angeles Regional Center. The state of California accepts responsibility for individuals with developmental disabilities to the California Department of Developmental Services. That state department contracts with 21 private nonprofit regional centers. Eastern Los Angeles, located in Alhambra, is responsible for the Northeast Health District. And so for the people who are living with developmental disability in the communities, Eagle Rock, Glassell Park, Mount Washington, and adjoining, there are families there that need this. I would say that they're extremely low income in general and are not able to financially afford to maintain a car, even if they were capable of driving a car. So the parking has not been an issue with the other projects that I've seen for people with developmental disabilities. There's a lot of vacant parking.
Thank you so much. Elisa Smith, and then last but not least, the representative for the council office, Eric Escada.
Hi, my name is Elisa Smith. I'm from Glassell Park. I'm a community activist. For informational purposes, I'm also on the Glassell Park Improvement Association board, and I chaired the meeting that we held on July 10th because the council district and the applicants had not been able to coordinate with the GPNC for a number of reasons. It was a very good meeting. There were about 18 people there, mostly for another project, but this project, it also became apparent that the parking was not an issue, the height was not an issue. I was also a member of the CDO with the architect who is the architect on this project, and even though the use is not retail or commercial on the first floor, he did make a concerted effort to make it transparent and to increase pedestrian friendliness when you walk by the building. A big issue that is ongoing is that we get ignored and overlooked when projects of this size come to our area, and Eagle Rock tends, no offense to anyone here, Eagle Rock tends to just say, oh, it's okay, but it really would have been good to have the public input and to have more information out there. And I did find one loophole, and it's actually a state loophole. I brought up the issue of the safety needed for the elevators for personal reasons. I've been in 4 such facilities in the last couple of years, and one of them didn't have any elevators because it was all one floor out in the valley. 3 others had 3 elevators, 2 passenger, 1 for freight. And I did a little bit of research. There is no elevator building code, and in the state it says elevators are a convenience. Unfortunately, we know that elevators are not a convenience for people with disabilities. There's going to be an international symposium. We're not the only municipality that needs to address this issue.
Okay, just so you know, you're listening to Glassell Park, and you're well over a minute, so, okay? Mr. Vizcarra.
Good afternoon, council members. Adele Vizcarra, Planning and Transportation Deputy for Councilmember Huizar. The council member fully supports this project. We've been working with the developer for over a year now to ensure not only that the design is comparable to some of the other developments along the corridor, but to make sure that since the first floor is not commercial, that it resembles a commercial space and that it function as a non-residential use to still encourage a walkable corridor. We're dealing with 3 of the most underserved populations in the community, homeless veterans, senior citizens, and people who are developmentally disabled. The developer has a long track record, a positive track record. They're based out of the community, and we just think it's a great project. They offer a lot of amenities, and we ask for your support. Thank you.
Okay, so you're requesting to deny the appeal? The request of the council is to deny the appeal? Yes. Okay. Councilmember, it's been a long day, huh? Hang in there, hang in there. This is the last one.
One more.
2 more.
No, one more.
One more.
Number 2.
Number 2. Okay. So that would be the action of this committee to deny the appeal. And we'll move forward with that.
Yep.
Thank you very much, folks. What else do I have, Roberto?
It's item 2, the reappointment of Mr. Michael Ponce. I don't know if he's still in the audience.
Is Mr. Ponce here? Where'd he go?
He wasn't here before.
Oh, is he here or he left? No, he never was here.
Don't know.
Can we just move on it? Or
It's a reappointment, so.
okay, we'll move on that then. Yeah. He's doing a great job. All right. Okay, that takes care of
And
number 2.
then public comment, Council.
Public comment, Mr. Noel Weiss. Front and center,
Thank you. I
sir.
can't pass up this wonderful opportunity, Mr. Reyes.
Of course you can.
But I won't. Today in council, I heard that you had an issue with solar. The fact the planning department didn't have a protocol in terms of how to evaluate some of the impacts of solar. That's the same issue that we're talking about with the SB 1818. The city attorney lost it. A neighborhood was destroyed by an SB 1818 project when the judge ruled on Louise Avenue in Bill Rosenthal's district that there was no protocol in place to evaluate the specific adverse effect on the public health, welfare, safety, and the environment. Now, I don't know whether the city attorney had ever followed up with the planning department, whether or not such a protocol is in place, but again, that's something that you need to do, along with the question of, again, the economics of these projects. Secondly, for the record, this idea that voluntary conditions are not enforceable, the Lincoln Place decision was a voluntary condition case, the Court of Appeal, and we all know all of the difficulties that centered around the problem of the city attorneys not enforcing that no eviction voluntary promise. The Court of Appeal said that that condition and other conditions that were voluntary were enforceable, and yet our new city attorney still maintains the old Rocky Delgadillo policy. We need to revisit it, and I urge you to, again, obtain the data we need on the SB 1818 and revisit some of these issues. Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you very much, sir. Anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.